Hello Paranormal M channel friends. Where are you watching from right now? Drop a comment below and let me know. How's everyone doing? Thanks so much for sharing your paranormal experiences with us. We truly appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so we can listen to even more stories together. Now, grab your headphones, switch on your nightlight, and let's get started. Good night. So I was maybe 5 or 6 when this happened. One of those memories that stuck to me like a burr, even though I still can't fully explain it. It was really early in the morning, still that bluish, half-awake kind of light, and my older half-sister, Marisol, and I were already up. We were excited because we were about to leave for a family trip down to Alabama to visit relatives. It was a big deal to me. Those trips felt like an event, like the whole year led up to them. And that year felt extra special because Marisol was coming with us. Usually, she spent most of her summers with her dad, so she didn't always get to be part of the trip. But this time she was going, and we were both buzzing about it, talking too fast, bouncing from one thought to another. Just that kid energy where sleep doesn't matter if something fun is about to happen. At some point, Marisol started talking about her grandmother who had died not long before. She called her Lala, and I remember the way her voice got a little quieter when she mentioned her, like she was thinking hard. She said something like, "Do you think she's still around? Like, watching out for me?" Then Marisol got this idea, almost playful, like it was a game. She looked at the wall over her bed and called out, kind of softly but also kind of daring the universe. She said something like, "If you're here, show me. Make a shadow." And I swear to you, almost right after that, we saw it. On the wall above her bed, a shadow appeared that looked like a head. Not a whole person, just a head shape. Dark and clear enough that it made both of us freeze. My stomach did that weird drop feeling, because even though we were curious, we did not expect anything to actually happen. We just stared. I remember my heart thudding so loud it felt like it filled the room. And then, a few seconds later, it got even stranger. On the far left side of the same wall, another shadow showed up. This one shaped like a full person. But it wasn't the same kind of dark. It had this lighter, warm tint to it, like it was mixed with the sunrise coming through the window, almost amber. And it moved. Not like someone walking normally either. The best way I can describe it is like a slow, exaggerated running pose. Arms bent, legs stretched like mid-stride, like a person caught in a dramatic jog, but looping through the motion at a weird, unhurried pace. Marisol and I just watched it, completely silent, like if we spoke too loud it would notice us. And then it was gone. Just gone. Like someone switched it off. That's when I broke. I started crying, full-on, little kid terrified crying. And Marisol immediately got serious, like she regretted the whole idea. She turned toward the wall and said, "Okay, stop. You're scaring her. Please stop." And after she said that, nothing else happened. No more shadows, no movement. Just the wall, the morning light, the two of us breathing too fast. I've told people about this before, and the most common explanation I hear is, maybe it was a dream. And I get why people say that. I really do. But here's the thing. This memory has always felt like a normal memory, like the same category as remembering the smell of a room or the pattern on a blanket. And I had plenty of nightmares as a kid, and I remember those as nightmares. They had that specific, surreal, wrong texture that dreams have. I asked Marisol about it years later, and she said she didn't remember it happening at all. But then she explained she doesn't remember a lot of her childhood, because she was going through a really hard time back then, and blocked out huge chunks of it. What did make my skin prickle a little was that she also said, "Honestly, That sounds like something I would have done. Like calling out to someone who passed away and asking for a sign. She's always been the type to poke at paranormal stuff just to see what happens. Like it's fascinating to her, like experimenting. And me? I've always been the skeptical one. I want a reasonable explanation. I've tried to pick it apart from every angle. Light from the window, something outside moving, our eyes playing tricks, kid imagination, dream logic bleeding into waking life. But what I keep circling back to is the physical setup. Marisol was sitting right there on the bed, and the first shadow, the head, showed up above her. Then the full body shadow appeared way off to the other side of the wall, and I could see Marisol the entire time. She wasn't doing anything that could have caused that. So I'm left with this one stubborn little moment from childhood that doesn't neatly fit in any box. And I think that's why it still sticks with me. Not because I'm convinced it was a ghost, but because it was the first time I remember feeling like the world might be bigger and stranger than the explanations I like to lean on. So here's where I'm at right now. I'm in this weird in-between season of my life. I'm selling my place, getting ready to move halfway across the country for work, and until everything lines up, I'm staying with my dad, back in my childhood home. And I need you to understand something about this house right away. My dad is basically the only person who has lived here for any real stretch of time and not had something happen. It's almost funny, if it wasn't so unsettling. Like the house just decided, nah, you're fine, and saved all its weirdness for everyone else. Because other people? People who don't know each other? People who've never compared notes? They've described the same thing without being prompted. More than once, different visitors have mentioned seeing a woman standing in the kitchen. Same general look, same presence, same spot. Except, there's no woman. There's never been a woman. My brother Miles, who is aggressively skeptical, like the kind of guy who would argue with a candle about whether it's allowed to flicker, had something come flying out of the kitchen one night. Not a shadow, not a draft, something with weight. It slammed into him hard enough to throw him off balance, and then it just vanished into the dining room like it was late for an appointment. My mom had her own run-ins when she lived here. She swore she saw objects physically moving on their own. And there's this one story she told me that I still can't quite shake. Right after she gave birth to me, she was on medication, and the pills kept disappearing. Just gone. Over and over. No explanation. Then one morning, she woke up and watched it happen in real time. She saw one pill on the bedside table stand up on its side, like someone pinched it and lifted it, and it rolled. Except it didn't roll normally. It rolled off the edge, changed direction like it had a mind of its own, and went underneath the table. So she got down on the floor and looked, and under there, like some sick little stash, was a whole cache of the medication that had been missing, all tucked away like something had been collecting it. And my own experiences, mine were the kind that don't feel like a campfire story. They felt sinister. Like the house wasn't just haunted, it was hostile. Sure, it had all the usual stuff. Creaks when nothing should shift. Soft murmurs you couldn't make out. That sense of being watched that makes your skin go tight. But the clearest thing, the one that's burned into me, happened when I was 10. I remember it with this awful clarity. I was climbing into bed. One leg was already on the mattress, and the other was still on the floor. And as I was shifting my weight, I felt a hand wrap around the ankle of the leg that was still down. A hand. Not pressure. Not fabric snagging. Fingers. I remember the details in a way that makes me nauseous even now. I could feel individual fingers. I could feel the joints, which made me think it was a thin hand, bony almost. I felt the nails, and it was ice cold, like it had been sitting in snow. And then it started pulling, not tugging, pulling with intention. My body began sliding under the bed, and I'm telling you, there is no version of that moment where I did it to myself. The position I was in, one leg up, one leg down, there's no leverage to drag yourself backward like that. But I moved anyway. I felt my thighs stretching into this painful, forced half split, like my muscles were going to tear. I slid at least a couple feet underneath the bed before it suddenly stopped. Just stopped, like someone let go. So when I say this house has something wrong with it, I don't mean it in a maybe it's spooky way. I mean there's something off here that even the most committed non-believer can't easily shrug away. It's not just events either, it's the atmosphere. The second you step inside, it's like the air thickens, like the place has this dampening effect on everything, sound, mood, even light. And that sounds dramatic, but I swear it's real. You can open every shade, every curtain, flood the windows with sunshine, and somehow the house still looks gray. Like the brightness hits the rooms and just gets buffered. The corners never fully brighten. The light feels tired before it reaches the walls. And it drains you. That's the part that feels the most consistent. I can be inside for 10 minutes and feel like I've run out of battery. Like my thoughts slow down and my body gets heavy, and all I want is to leave. The strangest part is, I've never even felt like it's a ghost exactly. It doesn't feel human. It doesn't feel like a person lingering. It feels more like a bad pocket of something. Like the house is sitting on a nasty current, or it's acting like some kind of funnel. Like a place where the air and the energy and the mood all get pulled downward. And right now, it's quiet. Dormant, almost. Nothing dramatic is happening, but the pressure is still there, like something holding its breath in the walls. And that's why I'm torn. Because a big part of me wants to do something, anything, to push back against it. To make the place feel lighter while I'm stuck here. But there's this fear in the back of my mind that if I start trying to clear it, I'll just wake it up. Like I'll poke whatever this is and remind it I'm here. So I'm living in this uneasy balance, trying not to provoke it, trying not to think about it too much, while also feeling it sitting over my shoulder the entire time, like a storm that hasn't decided whether to break yet. So, I want to take you back to a night that should have been completely normal. I went to bed like always, nothing on my mind, nothing weird in the air. And then I woke up in the middle of the night. It was 3:07 a.m. exactly. And the thing is, that time didn't just happen once. It started becoming my time. Like my body was being yanked awake on purpose. At first, I only remember opening my eyes a crack and hearing something right next to me. Not across the room. Next to me. Little sounds, like someone was carefully moving things around. And I swear to you, fear hit me so fast I felt sick. I squeezed my eyes shut so hard my face hurt, because in my head I was like, if I look, I'm going to see something I can't unsee. And then, this is the part that still makes my stomach flip. It started knocking things off my nightstand. Not all at once, one by one, like it was trying to show me it had control. I just lay there frozen, listening to the little thuds, listening to a steady tapping, and feeling this heavy, awful presence like something was hovering right over me. I didn't sleep at all. When the sun finally came up, I shot out of bed, turned on every light I could reach, and ran straight to my sibling, my brother, Eli. I told him something happened. I didn't tell him everything, though. I was honestly scared that if I described it too clearly, it would, I don't know, get angrier, like it was listening. And after that, it didn't stop. Every night there was tapping on the wall. Sometimes it sounded like fingernails. Sometimes like someone drumming slowly just to mess with me. Papers would rustle in my room even when nothing should have been moving. I'd lie there trying to convince myself it was air or the house settling. But it never felt like that. It felt intentional, like a message. I'm still here. One night, I dragged in this old lamp we had sitting around, one of those tall ones that had been shoved into a corner for ages. I didn't even care if it looked weird in my room. I just wanted light. I wanted something comforting. But my dad, Ray, saw it and got irritated in this cold, sharp way that didn't match the moment at all. He muttered something about me being dramatic and acting scared of the dark. And then, no warning, he snapped the lamp. Just used his knee and broke it like it was nothing. I remember standing there stunned, not even knowing what to say. It wasn't just that the lamp was broken. It was the feeling of being trapped. Like the one thing I did to make myself feel safer got taken away in seconds. So I went back to waking up at 3:07. Back to the scratching sounds. Back to the tapping. Back to feeling like something was right behind me even when I refused to turn around. And then it got worse, because it started finding ways to reach me outside my room. I know I was in 6th grade when this happened, because I remember writing about it in this little notebook I carried everywhere. I wrote everything down like I was trying to prove to myself I wasn't imagining it. One day I went to grab that notebook from my backpack at school. It was gone. And I mean gone. Not misplaced, not maybe I left it on my desk. It wasn't there, and I remember my hands shaking while I dug through my bag like a maniac. Later that day, my friend Marisol messaged me. She said, is this yours? And she sent me a picture, a photo of my notebook page, the page I'd written in. I just stared at it, because I didn't understand how it was even possible. I hadn't shown it to anyone. I hadn't sent it. And yet, somehow, she had it on her phone. After that, it started testing me. Like it would drop little details into messages that were too specific to be coincidence. Things I'd thought privately. Things that happened during my day that nobody else would know. It felt like it had eyes on my life, not just my room. And the creepiest part is, I started responding. Not because I wanted to, but because I was desperate to understand what was happening. I'd type in Marisol's chat like I was talking into the dark, and then she'd get replies that didn't sound like her at all. Short, taunting, knowing. I still feel guilty about that sometimes, because she must have thought I'd completely lost it. And then, because apparently it wasn't enough, it followed me into the stupidest place imaginable. A game. I was obsessed with Roblox back then. It was my escape, my little safe world. Until an account showed up that looked almost exactly like mine. Same name, same style. Just one tiny change. An extra letter at the end. Like a copycat shadow. And it messaged me. Just seeing that username pop up made my heart drop, because it felt like it was saying, "You can't get away from me. Not even here." And that wall tapping? That wasn't just sound. There are still marks. I'm not exaggerating. There are faint scratch lines on the wall that never fully disappeared, like something dragged across it over and over. Proof I didn't just dream it. It also loved moving my stuff. I'd leave something on my dresser, like a bracelet or a hair clip, and later it would be somewhere else. Not just slightly shifted, like fully relocated. And it didn't only mess with me. One day my parents were trying to leave the house, and their keys vanished. They tore the place apart. My mom was frustrated. My dad was snapping at everyone. And then suddenly the keys were sitting right on the kitchen table. Not hidden, not tucked behind something. Just there. They immediately blamed me. They were like, "Did you do this because you don't want to go?" and I remember standing there with my face burning because I knew it wasn't me. But there was no way to explain without sounding insane. Eventually, little by little, things started fading. Not overnight, more like the volume turning down slowly. The nights weren't as loud. The tapping wasn't constant. And honestly, the first real shift happened when my mom bought me a nightlight. She'd noticed I'd been sleeping with my room light on, and she didn't shame me for it. She didn't get angry. She just tried to help. It was a simple thing, but it made me feel less alone in the dark, and somehow, whether it was coincidence or not, everything started cooling off after that. But even when it got quieter, the fear didn't disappear right away. I was so used to feeling watched that even taking a shower felt like stepping onto a stage. Like I'd glance at the curtain expecting something to be there, even though I knew logically it shouldn't. And the hardest part is, it's not easy to explain this to anyone without them immediately deciding what it was. All I know is how it felt. It felt real. It felt personal. And for a long time, it felt like something had its attention locked on me, and it wanted me to know it. I need to tell you about this place I keep going to when I'm asleep, because it's not just a dream at this point. It's been years, like years. And every time I end up there, it feels like I've been dropped back into a world that already remembers me. So, I've had disturbing dreams for a long time, since I was a teenager. I'm in my mid-20s now, and they still come. They're always intense, like I'm living someone else's life for the night, and they almost always involve drugs showing up somehow, and me getting dragged into these situations where I'm one wrong move away from dying. And there's always this same man. I'll call him Elias, because that's not his real name. Honestly, I don't even know if he has a real name, but he has this familiar face that never changes. He first started showing up when I was about 16, and he's still there now, like he's been waiting at the edge of my life the whole time. He doesn't act like a villain. It's the opposite. He's warning me every time. Sometimes he appears in the basement of this massive hotel, like he's just standing there in the dim light, calm as anything, while my stomach is doing flips. Other times he's sitting on a bench outside some corner store I've been to 100 times in that dream city. And when he talks, it's not dramatic, it's almost tired, like he's said the same line too many times. Don't go that way. Don't take anything from them. Not tonight. And I hate how much I trust him, because I don't even understand why I do. The city itself, it's hard to explain without sounding ridiculous. It feels post-apocalyptic, but not in the movie way. More like the world ended politely. Like people kept going after something broke and never got repaired. The streets are familiar but wrong. The sky always looks kind of bruised, and there's this constant sense that something terrible is happening just out of sight. Sometimes I'm walking on the outer edge of it, like the city thins out into nothing. I'll be barefoot, always barefoot, and I won't know where I'm going, just stumbling along broken pavement, trying to pretend it's normal. And then I end up at this house. It looks ordinary at first, just a house in the middle of nowhere, like it got placed there by accident. But once you're inside, it's impossible. It has more rooms than it should, doors where there weren't doors before, hallways that feel like they rearrange when you're not looking. There are hidden tunnels, little service corridors, and this part makes me sound insane. There's even a restaurant inside it that I keep going to, like it's my comfort spot. But I don't actually feel safe there, because bad things have happened there. In one dream, I was kidnapped from that house, pulled away so fast I didn't even get to scream. In another, I was lying in what I thought was my room, and someone just walked in through a doorway that didn't exist the last time I looked, like the house had made a new entrance for them. And the owners, This elderly couple, I'll call them Marion and Howard, they're always off. Sometimes they're sweet, overly welcoming, like they're proud I came back. Sometimes they vanish completely, like the house is running itself. And for some reason, the place is constantly hosting events, like ghost tours, people with flashlights and pamphlets walking through my nightmare house like it's entertainment. But the scariest place in the whole city isn't the house. It's the waiting room. There are always people there, a lot of them, and nobody looks okay. Some of them look sick in a way that makes you think, you shouldn't be alive. Some look like they've already died and are just still sitting. They're impatient, restless, angry, like they've been waiting for something that never happens, and no one ever gets called back. Ever. There's an upstairs area too, like a balcony hallway that overlooks the first floor. And every time I'm there, I'm terrified of what's on the second level. It's not one specific thing. It's the feeling. Like the air is contaminated. Like if I go up there, I'll be seen. In some dreams, there are vicious dogs, huge, tense, ready to tear into anything that moves. In other dreams, it's people with guns, posted in corners like they're guarding something. It's always different details, but it's the same message. You shouldn't be here. One time, though, I didn't just run through it. I watched something. There was a guy visiting someone who was already in that place, like he'd made it past the waiting room somehow. I couldn't hear their full conversation, like the dream muted it, but I saw them crying, both of them. The kind of crying that's ugly and honest and doesn't stop. And I remember standing there frozen, unable to intervene, and then realizing I was crying too. Like my body was responding to grief I didn't even understand. That's what messes with me. It's not just fear. It's emotion that feels borrowed. And then there's the hotel. The hotel is a whole thing. It's massive, like it goes on forever. I'm always there at midnight, always trying to get somewhere, always feeling like I'm being watched. One of the floors is off limits, and the hallway to it smells like mold and wet carpet and something worse underneath. Like rot, like history. And the strangest part is there's always food there. Trays, carts, staff walking around, but it's impossible to actually get anything. Every time I try, something blocks me. A door locks. A person turns away. A hallway becomes the wrong hallway. It's like the hotel is teasing me with normal life, but won't let me touch it. And in this city, people are constantly offering me drugs. Like it's as casual as offering gum. Someone will press something into my hand and I'll assume it's weed, or mushrooms, or something that makes sense. And then I look down and realize it's these weird black pills. Too dark, too smooth, almost unnatural. And everyone else takes them like it's nothing, like it's just part of being there. But when I take them, it always goes wrong. The sensation in the dream shifts. The fear spikes. Like my body is screaming, "That's not what you thought it was." Like I've been tricked. I've almost been shot in that city. I've been chased. I've been cornered. I've been grabbed by strangers who act like they've known me forever. There are places I recognize, even though I've never seen them awake. There are people who nod at me like I'm a regular, like I belong there. And that's when Elias shows up again, always at the moment things tip too far. Once I was staying in the hotel and there was this person living in a bathtub. I know how that sounds, but in the dream it was just true, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I'll call them Ren. Ren looked half feral, half gentle, like they'd been surviving in the plumbing for years. And that night, when a couple people tried to pull me out of my room, Ren appeared, silent, fast, and helped me escape. Like they'd been listening the whole time, waiting for the exact second I needed help. I don't know if Elias is part of the nightmare. or part of the defense. Because here's the thing, the city came first. I started dreaming about it before he ever showed up. And then, years later, suddenly he's there, steady, familiar, always warning me away from the worst choices. And when I try to tell people about any of this, they don't believe me. They say I was too young when it started to even know the things I describe. Like I couldn't possibly have invented certain details. Like my brain wouldn't have had the material yet. But I know what I remember. And I know what it feels like when I step back into that city and it greets me like I never left. Sometimes I wake up shaking, heart racing, like I barely made it out alive. And sometimes, this is the part I don't say out loud. I wake up with this weird, heavy gratitude. Like someone walked me to the edge of something awful, put a hand out, and kept me from going over. Like Elias. Like he's been doing it for years. Okay, so let me start by admitting something up front. I'm a skeptic by default. I don't really do ghosts or curses. If anything paranormal happens, my brain immediately files it under science we just haven't pinned down yet. Also, one detail matters a lot here. I grew up in a French-speaking household in Quebec, and when this happened, English was basically a mystery language to me. I could recognize the vibe of it, maybe, but I didn't know it. So, picture this. It's a warm summer evening. I'm maybe 8 years old, and I'm wandering up the street near my place. At the end of the road, there's this stretch of woods. Nothing dramatic, just a little patch of forest with a small clearing before the trees really thicken. Kids would sometimes meet there, build little forts, dare each other to go farther in, that kind of thing. I'm walking around the clearing, half looking for my friends, half just killing time, when I notice something pale on the ground. At first, I think it's a stick. Then I realize it's not a stick. It's a bone. Like, unmistakably a bone. About the length of my forearm, and it's broken. One end looks jagged like something snapped it, and a chunk is missing. My stomach does this tight little flip, but I still crouch down because kids are weird and curiosity is stronger than fear until it suddenly isn't. And right beside it, on the dirt, there's a single drop of blood. Just one. Not a smear, not a trail. One lonely drop, dark and glossy, like it fell from nowhere. Now, the normal thing would have been, nope, and sprint home like my life depended on it. But I didn't. I kind of froze, like my body forgot the next step. I stared at that drop so hard it felt like the rest of the world went quiet around it. And then the drop started to move. Not like it was dripping or spreading. It shifted, like it had intention. It slowly pulled itself into a shape, almost like it was drawing, until it looked like a tiny cross on the ground. My skin went cold. I stood up, bone still in my hand, and that's when everything in front of me changed. The forest, the entire wall of trees, looked dead, burned, like the life had been vacuumed out of it. The trunks were blackened, the leaves gone, the ground ashy. And just past the first line of trees, there was this massive dome structure, like a rounded tent, the kind you'd see in disaster movies. Bigger than a car, maybe 6 or 7 meters across. And there were 2 people in these bright white protective suits, full hazmat gear, faces hidden behind clear masks, walking around the dome like they were inspecting something. They were holding clipboards or instruments, moving carefully, like the ground itself mattered. And above them, this is the part that still makes my throat tighten. There were warning signs. One had that symbol, the radiation trefoil. That part didn't shock me too much, because my stepdad at the time worked with equipment that used radioactive components, always shielded, always handled properly. I'd seen that symbol on cases before, so my brain already had a file folder for it. But the other sign had words, 2 simple words printed in bold. Keep out, in English, not French. And I remember, so clearly, the feeling of my brain catching on it like a snag in fabric, because I understood what it meant, immediately, without translating, without thinking. It landed in me like a warning I'd always known. I looked down at the dirt again, expecting that cross-shaped blood mark to still be there. And it wasn't. Nothing. Just normal ground. I blinked and looked back up. I was standing there holding a broken bone like an idiot, heart thudding, trying to convince myself I hadn't just watched the world crack open. I ran home. At the house, I showed the bone to my mom, my stepdad, and my older brother Lucas. Everyone did the adult thing where they try not to freak a kid out while also being visibly unsettled. They examined it, washed it, turned it over in their hands. After a bit of back and forth and, honestly, some mild arguing, they concluded it was probably from a dog's leg, or something similar. Animal, not human. That was the main comfort. And then, that was it. No explanation for why it was there, how it got snapped, why there'd been blood nearby. We didn't call anyone. We didn't find a carcass. The story kind of stopped. My brother kept the bone for years in a little box of odd keepsakes, like it was proof the whole thing had happened. But here's what's always tripped me up, even more than the burnt forest vision. Those words. Keep out. I didn't start learning English until later, at least a year after that summer. At that age, I couldn't have read it in real life. I didn't have English books. Nobody in my home was speaking it to me casually. And the phrase wasn't something I'd heard and tucked away. So how did my brain hallucinate a sign with perfectly correct English? 2 words that carry a very specific tone. Simple, direct, threatening, in a moment where I was supposedly inventing the whole thing. Was it subconscious? Like, maybe I'd seen the phrase on TV somewhere and didn't remember seeing it, but my brain stored it anyway. Maybe I recognized the shape of the words, and my fear filled in the meaning. Or maybe I'd heard it once, passing by a construction site, a movie playing in another room, and it stuck deeper than I realized. Or, did my kid brain misfire in some totally explainable way? Heat, dehydration, stress, some weird neurological blip? A moment of dissociation where reality slipped and snapped back. I don't want it to be anything mystical. I really don't. The peering into the future idea makes my skin crawl, honestly. But I can't shake the feeling of standing there, bone in hand, staring at a warning I shouldn't have been able to understand, and understanding it anyway. And that's why, even as a skeptic, I still carry this story around like a splinter I can't quite pull out. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you this the way I tell a friend late at night, because that's honestly how it feels in my head. Like I'm trying to make sense of something that keeps slipping through my fingers. About 2 weeks ago, my house started doing this weird thing. And when I say my house, I mean my normal, boring family house. I live here with my family. We've got 2 dogs, and the place was built about 12 years ago. We've lived here forever with 0 paranormal drama. No cold spots, no creepy whispers, nothing. The vibe has always been completely ordinary. And then suddenly, over the last couple weeks, it's like something started testing the water. Not consistently either. It's showing up in different ways, at different times, to different people. That's what messes with me most. My family isn't the type to freak out easily. We're the kind of people who would rather blame a loose vent or a weird reflection than say, ghost. So the fact that even they are getting unsettled, that's saying something. Let me walk you through what happened. So first, a few nights ago, I'll say it was maybe 3 nights back, I was heading upstairs pretty late. The house was quiet, lights mostly off, everyone already in bed. I'm halfway up the staircase when the stair light just clicks off, like someone flipped it. And the thing is, that light has 2 switches, right? Like a switch at the bottom and a switch at the top. Both were in my line of sight. Nobody could have reached either without me seeing them. Also, the bulb didn't pop. It wasn't like it fizzled out. It was just on, and then it wasn't. I froze for a second, mostly because it was so sudden. But I didn't scream. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, staring like an idiot, trying to decide if I was about to become a person who runs up the stairs in a panic like in every horror movie ever. The next night at dinner, we're talking about it, and my grandma goes, "I thought you were pranking us." And I'm like, "What?" She tells me she'd been lying in bed and saw the light go out under her door, and at the exact same time, she heard this sharp little yelp outside her room, like someone startled. She swears she heard it. But I didn't make a sound. I wasn't even near her door. I was on the stairs, and I had no idea what she meant until she said it. That's when I got that sinking feeling. Not fear exactly, more like confusion, and this gross little tug in my stomach that something wasn't lining up. Then there's what happened to my sister. This one still gives me chills because it's so specific. She was home visiting. She goes to college now. And she was up near the top of the stairs, in the bathroom. The bathroom door was cracked open, and she was looking at herself in the mirror, doing whatever people do in mirrors. She hears someone running up the stairs, fast, and then one of our dogs scrambling after them, nails clicking, like a chase. She assumes it's one of us playing with the dog. But when she looks through the mirror, because the mirror angle catches the hallway, she sees someone. A woman. Like, actually sees her. She says the woman had long, loose hair and this pale, flowy dress, like a nightgown. Not modern looking. Not like pajamas. More like something you'd see in an old photo. My sister kind of freezes because her brain is trying to make it make sense. Then she swings the door open, expecting to catch whoever it is. And there's nobody. No footsteps, no movement. Nothing. Just our dog, standing at the far end of the hallway by himself, staring like he's watching someone who isn't there. That part makes my skin crawl. And then my grandma had her own thing, earlier. This was closer to the beginning of the whole mess, maybe around the first few days. She was home alone in the living room, right near the bottom of the stairs. She said out of the corner of her eye, she saw a dark shape, like a person-shaped shadow, walking past the doorway. Not a flicker, not a light trick, something with movement, like a body moving through space. She checked the whole house. Locked doors, empty rooms, nothing out of place. And she was genuinely shaken, which is rare for her. She told us she's never seen anything like that, and she's also not the type to invent a ghost story for fun. So now we're sitting there like, what is happening? And of course, everyone wants a reason, a trigger, a this is why. Here's the part that makes it complicated. I work in EMS, 911 system, and part of what we do includes body removals. My family's first reaction was, something followed you home. And I get why they'd say that, but I honestly don't think that's it. Most of the time, it's not violent or dramatic. It's just death. It's sad, But it's not like I'm in some horror movie situation every shift. But here's the other thing. I took a trip right before all this started. I went to a mountain community in western North Carolina where my extended family has a small cabin. I spent part of my childhood around there. A lot of emotional history tied up in that place. I went because the area was trying to recover after major flooding from a hurricane, so I went to help however I could. And the thing is, the whole region had seen a lot of loss. Not just damage, loss. There was one property I spent a lot of time on, helping with animals, checking fences, hauling things, just doing whatever needed doing. And that property felt heavy. You know when you walk somewhere and your body just reacts before your mind catches up? Like the air feels thick? It reminded me of the feeling you get in places people call haunted. Old prisons, abandoned hospitals. I haven't been to one of those places in years, but the sensation was the same. Like something in your chest tightens, and you can't explain why. The property owner was sleeping in a barn for days after the flooding, completely spiraling. And I'm not saying this for shock. I'm saying it because it matters to the energy of the place. He had dogs. He tried to evacuate, but the evac team told him the dogs couldn't go, and he had a small window of time to handle it. And he shot them. Both of them. I can still feel how wrong that whole story sits in my bones. And while I was helping there, one of the horses died too. Colic. I found it. And if you've ever been around that kind of thing, the smell, the stillness, it stays with you. People in that area have also talked for years about seeing a woman in white. Like, it's a local thing. Stories that come up in casual conversation the way legends do. Half joking, half serious. And then there's one more layer. My sister visiting. She came home that same weekend I got back, and she told me that before she visited, her dorm room had a few weird little incidents. Nothing huge, but enough to make her go, okay, that's odd. And then when she came home, that hallway thing happened. And after she left and went back to school, the dorm weirdness stopped. So now I'm sitting here trying not to make a conspiracy wall out of thumbtacks and string, but it's hard not to notice the timing. Oh, and as if all that isn't enough, there's also a rumor about the land our house sits on. Supposedly, before the neighborhood was built, there was a domestic tragedy here. A man killed his family and then himself. But here's what I can't get past. We've lived here for more than a decade, and nothing. Not a single strange thing. Not once. So why now? Why 2 weeks of weirdness after years of normal? That's the question that keeps looping in my head. Because I don't know what I believe. I'm not trying to summon anything. Nobody in this house plays with boards or tries to invite spirits or anything like that. We're not dabbling. We're just living our lives. And then suddenly the lights are going out. My grandma's hearing sounds that didn't happen. My sister's seeing someone who isn't there. And our dog is acting like he's tracking movement in empty space. And I keep asking myself if this is something that followed me, or something that woke up, or just a pile of coincidences that happen to be perfectly timed in the worst possible way. But I'll tell you what, whether it's paranormal or not, the house doesn't feel the same at night anymore. And that's the part I hate the most. So, I'm going to start by saying this. Before this happened, I'd never had anything even close to paranormal. No ghosts, no weird feelings, nothing. And I'm not someone who goes looking for that kind of stuff either. This was about 5 years ago. I was 26 at the time, living at home for a bit, and my bedroom was down in the basement. right at the bottom of this narrow stairwell that opened straight into my room. It was one of those nights where you're not even tired, just awake, you know? I'm in bed, it's creeping toward 2 in the morning, and I'm doing the usual mindless scroll on my phone. My cat back then, his name was Milo, was curled up between my legs, completely knocked out. Warm, heavy, dead to the world asleep. And then, out of nowhere, Milo snaps awake like someone flipped a switch. Not sleepy awake, not heard a noise awake. I mean laser focused. He sits up and stares at the stairwell like he's looking at something that's standing there. His whole body goes stiff, his ears flatten slightly. And then he starts doing that low, deep growl cats almost never do. The kind that doesn't even sound like it should come out of them. I'm instantly unsettled because cats don't fake that. That's not, I saw a bug. That's something is wrong. His fur puffs up, tail thick, back raised, the full classic poofed up look. And while he's still facing the stairs, still growling, he starts backing up. Slowly, carefully. Like whatever he's seeing, he does not want to turn his back on it. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there watching him, and I can feel my stomach dropping because I'm thinking, okay, what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? I'm frozen. I'm not even breathing normally. I just sit up in bed, like my body is trying to get away without actually moving. Milo keeps backing up until he's pressed fully against me, like he's trying to crawl into my chest. And then, for the first time, he hisses. Not a quick little leave me alone hiss. This one was sharp and vicious, like he was warning something to stay back. And the second he does it, I feel it. This wave. It's like an icy blanket of air, but it doesn't just hit me. It moves through me. A cold sweep from head to toe that makes every hair on my body stand up. I remember thinking it didn't feel like normal cold either. It felt wrong, dirty, like the feeling you get when you step in something disgusting barefoot, except it was all over my skin and under it at the same time. I actually whispered out loud without even meaning to. Oh, hell no. And that was it for me. I didn't investigate. I didn't stare into the dark like a movie character. I scooped Milo up. He was shaking, still tense, and I carried him upstairs to a different bedroom and shut the door behind us. I slept with the lights on. I'm not ashamed to say it. Now here's the part that made it stick with me, because if it had just been the cat, I might have convinced myself he'd heard a pipe or smelled something weird. The next day, I'm talking to my mom about it, kind of half joking but also not joking at all. I tell her everything, how Milo stared at the stairs, how he growled, how I felt that cold rush like something passed over me. And my mom goes quiet. Then she tells me she hadn't mentioned it yet, but the day before, earlier that same evening, she'd been at a funeral for someone she knew through work. And on the drive home from the cemetery, she said she had this unmistakable feeling like she wasn't alone in the car. When she told me that, I swear my skin went cold again, because the timing lined up too perfectly. It wasn't just one weird moment. It felt like the same something, moving from one place to another looking for, I don't know, attention, heat, energy, a spot to land. Later that day, we didn't mess around. We opened windows, burned sage, said prayers, whatever you want to call it. We just made it clear that anything that didn't belong there needed to leave. My mom spoke out loud, firm and calm, like she was setting rules in her own home. And after that, nothing. No more staring, no more growling, No more cold wave. But I'll tell you what, ever since that night, I don't look at reality the same way. I don't act like I have answers, but I also don't shrug everything off anymore. Because I know what I felt. And I know my cat wasn't reacting to my imagination. So yeah, say your prayers, eat your vegetables, and if your cat starts growling at an empty stairwell at 2 in the morning, believe your cat. So I grew up in San Diego in the early 90s, and my brother and I were total latchkey kids. Both my parents worked long hours, so a lot of afternoons we'd let ourselves in, toss our backpacks down, and just figure it out until they got home. Our house was older, creaky in that normal, lived-in way, but it never felt scary. I didn't walk around feeling dread or anything like that. Still, there's this one weird little thing I remember from back then. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and swear I could see shadowy outlines, like people-shaped silhouettes, standing near my bed. I'd always do the same thing, pull the blanket over my head and tell myself, okay, cool, I watched something creepy on TV, my brain is being dramatic. And honestly, most nights I'd fall right back asleep like it was nothing. But one evening, something happened that didn't feel like a half-dream. It was one of those early winter nights where the sun disappears way too fast. So even though it was only around 5:30 or 6, it was already dark outside. I was in the bedroom we shared, and my brother, Noah, was out cold on his bed, totally knocked out. I was sitting on the carpet near the dresser, flipping through a comic book or maybe a library book. I can't remember exactly. What I do remember is how quiet everything was. Not the cozy kind of quiet either, the kind where you notice how still the air feels. On top of our dresser, there was one of those old-school setups. Big wooden dresser, giant mirror attached, the kind that makes your room feel twice as big. And sitting on the dresser was a postcard, face down. Just a random mailer, one of those cheesy promotional postcards. This one had a photo of a woman by a pool, like some vacation deal or hotel advertisement. Not scandalous or anything, just oddly specific, and honestly, I still don't know why it was even in our room. Anyway, for some reason, I kept staring at it. And then, without any warning, the postcard moved. It didn't slide. It didn't flutter. It didn't slowly creep to the edge. It just flipped up. Like someone pinched one end and popped it upright. 1 second it was face down, flat on the dresser, and the next it was standing up, leaned neatly against the mirror like it had been placed there on purpose. I remember freezing, not in a screaming kind of way, but in that silent, wide-eyed way where your body is waiting for your brain to explain what you just saw. I looked straight at Noah to see if he'd woken up. He hadn't even twitched. I looked around the room, like I expected to catch a curtain moving or feel air from a vent. Nothing. No windows open, no fan, no heater kicking on, no draft, no footsteps, no creak of the house settling right at that moment. Just stillness, like the room was holding its breath. And what's strange is, I wasn't terrified. I was confused, sure, completely puzzled, but it didn't feel threatening. It felt intentional, like something had gently tapped me on the shoulder just to prove it could. I didn't touch the postcard right away. I just stared at it, trying to talk myself out of what I'd seen. But I couldn't, because I watched it happen. I wasn't half asleep. I wasn't imagining it. I was sitting there, fully awake, in a quiet room, and something that shouldn't have moved. Because that's exactly what it was. Not a horror movie moment. Not something evil. Not some dramatic haunting. Just one small, impossible little gesture that made me realize the world might be a lot weirder than we like to admit. And that's the thing, it didn't follow me. Nothing else like that ever happened again in the same way. It was like that house held on to its own strange energy, and once we moved, it stayed behind. Years later, I found out the house is gone now, torn down, and there's a townhouse complex sitting where it used to be. And whenever I think about that, I wonder if the new people living there ever get that same kind of quiet little hello, that tiny, unexplainable nudge that makes you stop, look around, and realize you're not as alone as you thought. So, let me back up a little, because this didn't start out dramatic. It started as this quiet, uneasy sense, the kind you can't prove to anyone, but your body insists it's real. When we first moved into this house, the vibe was off. Not like, boo, spooky old home off. More like, something bad happened here off. I remember walking down the hallway and getting this uncomfortable feeling that someone had been hurt in that space, like the air itself still remembered it. And before I even noticed anything physical, I kept feeling watched, specifically from the far end of the hall, like something was posted up there, just paying attention. Then later, I actually saw the details that matched the feeling. There were patched spots in the walls, and a couple doors looked like they'd been repaired in a way that didn't feel accidental, like they'd taken a beating at some point. Especially that door at the end. It made my stomach sink, because it felt like confirmation. Back then, I did a simple cleansing, nothing flashy. Just went through, claimed the place as ours, said a few firm words out loud, set the tone, that kind of thing. And honestly, it worked. The house settled. For years it was calmer, lighter, and the creepy edge faded into the background. Fast forward to this year, things had been stable for a long time, and we had a roommate stay with us for a while. Her name was Danny. She wasn't a bad presence or anything. If anything, she was friendly and kept to herself. But after she moved out, my partner Mara and I both had that feeling like, okay, time to reset the energy. So we did another cleanse. We went room to room with smoke. This time it was rosemary and cedar, because that's what we had. And we started upstairs in our bedroom, then worked outward, like we were sweeping the house clean from the inside out. The first rooms were completely normal. Quiet. Almost boring in a good way. But when we got near the bathroom at the end of the hall, I swear my whole body reacted before my brain could catch up. It was this sudden wave of fear, like childhood-level fear, the kind adults don't usually feel without a reason. My skin went cold. My stomach dropped. And it wasn't just, I'm nervous. It was revulsion. Like every instinct in me was yelling, don't go in there. Don't speak. Leave. And at the same time, I felt stuck, frozen, like my legs wanted to move but didn't know how. I pushed through anyway. I walked in with Mara right behind me. We did the cleansing, and I said my little phrase, the same kind of, this is our home, only peace stays here, wording I've used forever. And just like that, the feeling snapped off, like someone turned a light switch. The air cleared. I didn't tell Mara what I felt, though. I didn't want to plant the idea in her head or freak her out. I figured, maybe it was just me. But when we finished and sat down afterward, I asked her casually, trying to sound neutral, hey, did you feel anything weird during that? And she hesitated, and then she went, actually, yeah. And I felt my stomach tighten immediately. She said, in the bathroom. It felt like something went straight through me. So I told her what I'd felt, how intense it was, how I almost couldn't move. And then she got quiet and said she'd had this sudden, vivid mental image, like it had been dropped into her mind from nowhere, of a bathtub with a bloodied body in it. And listen, Mara does not talk like that. She's not dramatic. She doesn't go looking for scary stuff. So when she said it it hit different. It gave me full-body chills. After that, things in the house ramped up over the next week in a way that felt personal. Then one night, after a particularly bad stretch of sleep, I woke up, and Mara woke up right after me, like we were linked. She told me she'd been having a scary dream, and even though it was hazy, she remembered one thing clearly. Something in the dream told her she had no idea how powerful it was. That made my blood run cold, because I'd already felt like I'd heard movement in the house before we even went to bed that night. So I got up, and I did what I do when I'm trying to reset the atmosphere. I spoke protections into the corners of the room, sprayed a little frankincense mist we keep around, and then I guided Mara through a protective visualization. Bright light, like a shield around her, steady breathing, grounding, the whole thing. She calmed down a little. And then, here's where it gets really strange. Right after that, as I was falling back asleep, I suddenly realized I wasn't in bed anymore. I was standing in the room. And the second I thought, wait, wasn't I just lying down? I would snap awake in bed. It happened again. Same thing. I'd wake up standing somewhere else in the house, start to question it, and bam, I'd wake up for real. After a few rounds of this, I finally thought, okay, this is a lucid dream. If I'm going to be stuck in this loop, I might as well use it. So the next time it happened, I stayed calm and moved through the house. Slow, careful, like I was listening with more than my ears, and I could feel it. That same heavy, dark presence, exactly like the bathroom feeling, that overpowering pressure that makes you want to freeze. I followed it, and when it got so intense I could barely move or speak, I called in protection, like invoking guardians, whatever you want to call it. In the dream, it worked immediately. The pressure eased enough for me to breathe and keep going. I moved toward the back of the house, opened a door, and instead of outside, it led into this cozy little coffee shop. Warm lights, soft chatter, the smell of espresso, completely out of place, but weirdly comforting. Behind the counter was a barista, Elena, around my age, with this calm, grounded presence. The second she saw me, she smiled like she'd been expecting me and said, "Oh, you're here. We were just talking about you." And I can't explain it, but I knew she wasn't just a random dream character. There was something protective about her, like she was the kind of being that doesn't get rattled, the kind that stands between you and something dangerous. We talked briefly, and then I asked her directly about the presence in the house, what it was, why it felt like that. And she said, very clearly, like she was choosing the words carefully, "I am haunted by Rosius." The name hit my ears in a strange way, like it had extra letters in it that I couldn't quite see. It sounded almost like Rosius, but I had this distinct sense there was an E in the middle, like it mattered. And what stuck with me most was how she phrased it, like she was the one being haunted by it, not me, not the house, her. And right after she said that, it was like something grabbed me. I felt myself being yanked backward, like pulled through a tunnel, and I snapped awake in my bed, breathing hard. Afterward, I couldn't stop thinking about Danny, our former roommate. Not because I blame her, but because she was into witchy stuff too. She had this tarot deck, something edgy with a warning label, like it was meant to call in certain entities and not to be used lightly. I don't know what she did with it, and I genuinely don't think she meant harm, but it's hard not to connect dots when things shifted so sharply after she left. Since that night, Mara and I have been doing more grounding and protection, and the house has been calmer. Not perfect, but calmer. Like the volume got turned down. So that's where I'm at. It's not like I'm trying to invite chaos into my life. I just want my home to feel like mine again. And I can't shake the feeling that whatever this is, it doesn't like us noticing it. Okay, so I normally go through life acting like ghosts are firmly in the fun story category. Like, yeah, sure, spooky vibes, love a campfire tale. Then someone brings the topic up, and it's like my brain goes, "Oh, you wanted memories? Here you go." And suddenly, I'm not so confident in my skepticism. The first thing I ever remember happening was when I was little, definitely not older than 9. It was one of those nights where the whole house felt extra quiet, like even the air was asleep. I got up to use the bathroom, half awake, doing that careful kid walk where you're trying not to step on any creaky spots. My parents' bedroom door was cracked open, and as I passed it, I glanced in without really thinking. And I swear I saw a woman in a white nightdress standing at their dresser mirror. Long hair just hanging there, like she'd been standing for a while. The thing that threw me instantly was, it didn't look like my mom. My mom kept her hair short back then and never wore anything like that. And the mirror, there wasn't really a reflection the way there should have been. But it was a quick glance, a blink and you miss it kind of moment. So I'm in the bathroom telling myself, you're half asleep. You imagined it. Your eyes are playing tricks. That's what eyes do at night. Except the whole time I'm washing my hands, I can feel my stomach doing that weird sinking thing, like my body already knows it didn't imagine anything. And then I walked back, and I looked again. And she was still there, except now she wasn't standing in front of the mirror. She was standing on the other side of it, like as if the mirror was a doorway. And she was on the far side, facing out, facing me. No one was in front of the dresser at all, just her, where a reflection would be, staring directly into the room. I didn't do the brave kid thing. I did the very unbrave kid thing. I ran. I sprinted back to my room and I screamed so hard my throat hurt. I dove under my blanket like it could protect me from, I don't know, physics? Spirits? Mirrors? I stayed under there trembling until my mom came rushing in. When I told her, she did that parent thing where she tried to make her voice gentle and normal. "It's nothing, sweetheart, you were dreaming." But I could tell she was unsettled too. Like she didn't want to go near their bedroom right away. And after that, I avoided mirrors for ages, like years. If I had to pass one at night, I would look anywhere but at it. Then there was another one. This time I was older, and it was Christmas Eve. The house was warm and bright, you know, that cozy holiday feeling, which honestly makes it creepier, because it wasn't like some abandoned, haunted place. It was just home. I stepped into the hallway and I saw a hand. Just a hand. No arm. No person. A pale hand wearing this chunky ring with a dark red stone, like a garnet or a ruby, resting on the banister. And it wasn't plopped there like someone had left it. It was moving, gliding along the banister the way someone's hand does when they walk up the stairs slowly, trailing their fingers along the wood. I froze so completely I felt locked into the floor. I just watched it, helpless, while it kept going up, sliding along the rail like it had somewhere to be. And I followed it with my eyes all the way until it disappeared around the curve where you can't see the top from the hallway. And I still didn't move. I couldn't. It was like my brain had pulled the emergency brake. And then there's the one I don't remember personally, but my family has told me enough times it feels like it belongs to me anyway. Apparently I was 3, and we'd gone to visit my granddad's grave not long after he'd been buried. It was our first time going, and everyone was emotional, quiet, doing the slow walk between headstones. My mom says I was holding her hand, and suddenly I asked, really casually, if we could go say hello to Granddad. They did the gentle explaining, "Oh, love, he's not here anymore," that kind of thing. But apparently I pointed toward the far back corner of the graveyard and said, very matter of fact, "Yes, he is. He's over there." And then I traced something with my finger like I was watching someone move, like I was following a person no one else could see. And after a moment I just went, "Oh, never mind. He's gone now." Everyone swears there was no one else there, just us. No visitor to confuse things, no passerby, nothing. So yeah, those are my little greatest hits of maybe ghosts are real and my brain is lying to me for comfort. And none of it felt angry, if that makes sense. It was scary, absolutely. Terrifying even. But not like something was trying to hurt me. More like something sharing space with us for a moment. And honestly, if my granddad really did come by to check on us, and I was the only one who could see him, that part is kind of sweet. Still freaky. Still makes my skin prickle when I think about it. But sweet. In a please don't ever do that again sort of way. So, first thing, I was completely sober. Like, dead sober. No booze, no anything. Honestly, I've been pretty clean for days, and I hadn't taken so much as a sleep aid. It started with this weird, almost stupidly specific feeling that there was an animal under my bed. Not even a scary monster under the bed vibe, more like a dog. Like a real dog, wedged under there, scratching and chewing at the box spring. At first I tried to ignore it, but it kept happening. So I did what anyone would do. I thumped the mattress once with my fist, kind of a knock it off move. And every time I did, the noise stopped immediately, like I'd hit pause on it. After a few rounds of that, scratch, scratch, thump, silence, I finally grabbed my flashlight and checked under the bed. Nothing. I checked again. Slower. Angles. Corners. No dog. No anything. Just dust and the usual junk you pretend you'll organize someday. I got back into bed, telling myself it was some random settling noise or my brain being dramatic. And then, she was just there, standing beside the bed. Not doing anything. Not saying anything. Just there. I couldn't see her face clearly, and it's hard to explain this without sounding ridiculous, but every time I tried to look straight at her, she'd turn away like she was avoiding the catch. Like if I got a clean look at her, the whole thing would collapse. But even without seeing her properly, I knew it was her. Not, I think it's her. Not, she kind of resembles her. I knew. Her name's not even important here, because I'm going to change it anyway. Let's call her Mira. But the feeling was exact. That familiar presence, like your body recognizes someone before your eyes do. I asked her questions. Quiet ones, because it was the middle of the night, and I still had this half-belief I'd snap out of it. Stuff like, "Is that you?" And, "Why are you here?" And, "What's happening?" And she answered, but barely. One-word answers. "Yeah. No. Later." If I tried to get details, if I asked her to explain, she wouldn't. It wasn't hostile. More like she couldn't, or didn't want to, or it wasn't allowed. At one point I asked, "Can you come closer?" And she said something like, "I can't." And then I said, "Can you touch me?" She didn't even hesitate. Just, no. That hit harder than I expected, because Mira, back when she was really in my life, was the kind of person who hugged you like she meant it, like she could press the worry right out of your ribs. So hearing no made my chest do that tight, sinking thing. Then she said, very calmly, "I'll be right back." And I swear to you, she walked directly toward the wall at the foot of my bed. No door, no hallway, just wall. And she passed into it like it was fog, and vanished. That was the exact moment something in me shifted from, "This is a dream," to, "Okay, wait, I'm awake." Because I sat up, fully. I swung my legs over the side of the bed. I touched my nightstand. I pinched my arm like an idiot. I felt everything. I was present in my body. I was in my room. And she was gone. A few minutes passed, maybe less, maybe more. Time gets weird in those moments. Then she came back. And this part is so absurd it's almost funny. She returned with a small bag of snacks, like the kind you'd grab from a convenience store when you're trying to feel better about being awake at a cruel hour. Except, she didn't come through a door. She didn't carry them in from anywhere. They sort of appeared from the folds of my comforter, like my blanket was a magician's sleeve. She held them up like, "See? I brought something." Eventually, she sat on the edge of the bed. Then she lay down beside me, not quite touching. And this is where it got gentler, strangely normal, like we were two people trying to make the best of impossible rules. She couldn't touch me directly, but with the blanket between us, she kind of brushed her feet against mine, softly, like testing the edge of a boundary. Like the blanket made it possible, or safer, or less real, in whatever way reality needed it to be. We didn't push it after that. No experiments. No, "Okay, now try your hand," or any of that. We just talked. Not like a dramatic reunion, more like the kind of talk you fall into when someone knows you too well. The kind where you don't have to perform. Where silence doesn't feel like punishment. And the whole time I had this feeling in my chest that I hadn't felt in years, like an old connection lighting up again. Not nostalgia exactly, something deeper. Like my body remembered the shape of that bond and just resumed it. For context, and I'll keep this vague on purpose, Mira and I had the kind of connection people call soulmate when they don't know what else to call it. Not because it was perfect, but because it felt undeniable. It ended because life got messy in a way neither of us could fix, not because we stopped caring. So having her there, in my room, in that quiet hour, it didn't feel like meeting a stranger. It felt like recognizing a frequency. Around 5 in the morning, right when the dark outside starts thinning, right when you can feel the night losing its grip, she sat up and said something like, "I have to go." Then she walked into my bathroom. And this is where the room turned into a glitch. She stepped forward like she was climbing stairs, except there were no stairs. No ladder, no attic access, no ceiling hatch, just empty bathroom air. But she climbed anyway, as if there was a staircase only she could see. She went up, out of sight. Then she came back down once, maybe twice. Each time she stood silently near my bed, almost like she was waiting for something to finish, like stretching before a long trip, or pausing because she didn't want to leave yet. I tried to look directly at her when she did that, and every time I did, she would thin out. Not disappear instantly, but fade, like my attention itself broke whatever kept her here. So I watched from the corner of my vision, like you do with a shy animal you don't want to spook. Finally, she went up the invisible stairs again, and this time, she didn't come back. I waited. Then I got up and went into the bathroom, because some part of me needed to confirm something with my own eyes. No hole in the ceiling, no hidden door, no attic stairs, no draft, nothing. Just my normal, boring bathroom. And I stood there, staring up like an idiot, feeling this mix of warmth and dread and longing I can't quite translate. Because it wasn't just what happened, it was how it felt. I felt her. I felt that old, powerful connection snap back into place like it had been waiting somewhere behind the walls of my life. And I don't know what to do with that. So yeah, now I'm left with the questions everyone would ask. Was I sleep deprived and half dreaming? Was it some kind of lucid state that convinced me I was awake? Am I so lonely my brain is building comfort out of thin air? Or was it something stranger? Some kind of projection, some shared moment, some impossible overlap? And the darkest question, the one I don't even like typing, was this a real ghost kind of encounter? I'm not asking anyone to tell me it's definitely paranormal or definitely psychological. I don't want to be laughed at for saying it out loud. If you've ever had anything even remotely like this, something that felt real in your body, not just in your imagination, I'd honestly like to hear how you made sense of it. Because right now, all I have is the memory of a presence by my bed, the soft brush of feet through a blanket, and the quiet feeling that someone I haven't seen in a long time somehow found her way back to me for a few hours before dawn. So, I want to tell you about something that happened this week, and I'm still not totally sure what to make of it. On Tuesday, my great-aunt Mireille passed away in her sleep. She was 78. It was completely unexpected, and it hit our family hard, especially that whole side of the family, because she was the one who held everyone together. You know those people who feel like the center of a family? That was her. Mireille was deeply involved in her church here in Luxembourg. She sang in the local choir for years, faithful, consistent, always showing up. And she always loved hearing me sing too. Every time I performed, she'd get emotional, like really emotional, tears in her eyes, squeezing my hands afterward, telling me thank you like I'd given her something priceless. And as a singer, that kind of reaction can be weirdly hard to process. Because in my head I'm thinking, it's just my voice. How is this affecting you that much? I don't fully understand it. But I've always respected it because it was so sincere. She meant it. When she died, her kids, my cousins, insisted I sing at the funeral. They didn't even frame it as a question. It was just, you're singing for her. And honestly, I wanted to. It felt like a final gift I could offer. The funeral was this past Saturday, so on Thursday morning, I went to the church with my pianist, Noah, to rehearse. It's the same church Mireille sang in. Same altar, same pews, same familiar echo when you speak. We rehearsed for almost 2 hours, and the whole time it was just the two of us in there, completely alone. And I need you to understand this. The energy in the church was not creepy, not heavy, not eerie. It was calm, quiet in a comforting way. If anything, it felt gentle, like the building itself was holding its breath. When we finished, we packed up our things and started walking toward the big main entrance doors. These doors are massive, tall, old, and seriously heavy. The handle is this thick, rusty metal that you have to pull down with real intention to open it. It's not one of those doors that moves easily. You feel it when it moves. Noah and I were just chatting, totally normal, casual conversation, while we walked. And right as I reached out my right hand, about to grab the handle moved. Not violently, not like a bang, just slow, down, and then back up again. Like someone on the other side was opening the door for us, or testing it, or starting to come in. And my first thought wasn't fear at all. I just assumed, oh, someone's there. So I instinctively stepped a little to the side, like you do when you're making room for someone to enter. I waited 1 second, 2 seconds. Nothing. So I pulled the door open myself, expecting to see someone walking in, and there was nobody. No footsteps, no person, no movement, just empty space outside. That's when I got confused. I turned around and asked Noah, "Did you see that?" But he'd been half a step behind me, and he hadn't been looking at the handle at the exact moment. He just blinked at me like, "See what?" So I tried to recreate it. I closed the door and opened it again, tried to gently move the handle the same way I'd seen it move. Slow down, slow up. and I couldn't, because it's too heavy. If you move it, you hear it. It resists you. It doesn't glide. What I saw was smooth, deliberate, like a hand was on it. But when I tried to do it softly, I physically couldn't. Not without that loud metallic scrape. Noah and I kind of stared at each other. Then we laughed. Because what else do you do when something doesn't make sense? We shrugged it off and walked out. But I'll be honest with you, it stayed with me. And maybe that sounds ridiculous. Maybe it was air pressure. Maybe the building settled. Maybe it was just one of those strange, perfectly timed mechanical things. But I've never seen anything like that in my life. Only in movies. And it happened 4 days ago, right here in Luxembourg, in the same church where I was preparing to sing goodbye. So, I don't know. What do you think that was? So, I was about 16 when this happened, and even now, it still creeps up on me when I think about it. I've always had this weird fear of dolls. Not like, oh, they're kind of creepy. I mean like, I genuinely hated being in the same room with them. But my older sister, well, Lena, she was the total opposite. She adored dolls, collected them, dressed them up, the whole thing. The worst one was this big princess doll. Pretty face, shiny hair, perfect little arms and legs, just sitting there, looking innocent like it wasn't plotting something. In our house, we had this tall mirror in one of the first floor bedrooms. The mirror had this wide shelf built into the top, like a display ledge for toys and random stuff. It sat right next to a big double bed, and Lena had decided that the princess doll belonged up there, perched on the ledge like a tiny queen, overlooking the room. And I should mention, our house was huge. Like, the kind of place where footsteps echo even when nobody's trying to be creepy. Each floor had a bunch of rooms, enough that if you were alone, it could feel a little too quiet. One week, my family had to go visit relatives for a couple of days. My parents left with my brother and Lena, and I stayed behind because I had exams. Honestly, I didn't even mind. I was a gamer, so I was thinking, great, 2 nights of peace, late night snacks, no one telling me to sleep. The first night, though, I don't know what got into me. I randomly decided I wanted to watch a horror movie. And of course I picked something about a creepy doll. Because why not make your own life harder, right? By the time the movie ended, it was almost midnight. The rain outside had started picking up, tapping against the windows, that kind of steady, heavy sound. And then I did the dumbest thing. I looked around my empty house and said, out loud, like I was joking with the walls, "All right, if there's anything in here, show yourself." The second the words left my mouth, the power went out. Not like a flicker, full blackout. And at almost the exact same moment, I heard this loud thump somewhere deeper in the house. Not a small sound. Not a, maybe something shifted. It sounded like something heavy hit the floor. My stomach dropped so fast I swear I felt cold. I tried to laugh it off, but my voice didn't cooperate. I called out again, this time a lot less brave. "If there's someone in here, a thief or something, just take whatever you want, okay? Just don't come near me." And then nothing. No more noise, just the rain and my own breathing. That silence was worse. After a few minutes of standing there, frozen, I grabbed a kitchen knife because, I don't know, I guess I thought I was suddenly the hero in some movie. My hands were sweating so badly I almost dropped it. I turned on my phone flashlight and started checking rooms one by one. Every hallway felt longer than it should have. Every doorway looked like it was hiding something. But everything seemed normal. Until I reached the bedroom with the mirror. I opened that door, and I swear my heart punched my ribs. Because that doll, Lena's princess doll that I hated, wasn't on the mirror ledge anymore. That ledge was empty. And for a second, my brain just refused to understand what I was seeing. Like it was buffering. Like No, that's wrong. That's not what's supposed to be there. Then it hit me all at once, and I let out this scream I didn't even recognize as mine. I backed up so fast I almost tripped, and I ran into another room and just stood there, shaking, trying not to panic. I just watched a horror movie. The power went out right after I challenged the house. There was a loud crash, and now the doll is gone. I forced myself to breathe, and after a minute, or maybe 10, I honestly don't know, I went back. Knife still in my hand, phone light shaking all over the walls. I stepped inside and scanned the room, and there it was. The doll was sitting on the floor right beneath the mirror, like it had simply fallen off the ledge. Which should have been comforting, right? Except, it didn't look like it had fallen naturally. It was sitting too neatly, upright, facing out, like it had landed on purpose. I told myself I was overthinking it. I picked it up with 2 fingers like it was contaminated, set it back on top of the mirror, and, this is the part that makes me feel ridiculous, I actually mumbled, sorry, okay? Like I was apologizing to a doll. And as I turned to leave, I caught movement in the corner of my eye. Just a tiny shift. It looked like the doll's head angled slightly, and one of its hands twitched, just a little. I froze. My brain immediately tried to rescue me. It's the wind. The window's open. Air pressure. You're tired. Your imagination. But my body didn't care about logic. Every hair on my arms stood up. I backed out of the room without turning my back to it, shut the door, and I didn't go near that mirror again for the rest of the night. Even now, years later, I can tell you exactly how that room looked in my phone flashlight, and exactly what it felt like to see that doll sitting there like it had been waiting for me. And honestly, I still don't like dolls. Not even a little. So this story isn't even mine at first. It was my mom who told it to me. We live out in western Washington, tucked into this pocket of trees and wildlife where the yard just kind of melts into the forest. Our place sits on a couple acres, big enough that at night the darkness feels thick. And honestly, weird little sounds have happened out here before. Branch snaps, something moving where it shouldn't be. The usual country at night creepiness. But we've lived here for over a decade, and nothing has ever sounded like an actual person saying actual words. Until this. This happened about a week and a half ago. It was late, fully dark, the kind of night where the sky looks like a lid. My mom, Marlene, was doing the last dog trip before bed. We have this long driveway, and maybe 20 steps down from the house, there's a small storage shed. Past that is a fence line, and on the other side is our neighbor's property, which, to be honest, just looks like endless woods. Mom had one earbud in, listening to an audiobook, half paying attention the way you do when you've done the same routine 1,000 times. The dogs were sniffing around like normal, not acting spooked at all. And then she thought she heard a man's voice. Not loud, not close, just there. At first, her brain didn't even catch up. Like she heard it, but it didn't register as real, because why would it be? And the dogs didn't react, so she kept moving. A few seconds later, she heard it again. This time, she froze, and she said she was pretty sure it said, "Help me." That's when she pulled the earbud out and just stood there, listening, holding her flashlight steady like she could somehow pin the sound down with light. And then it came again, clear as day. "Help me." I asked her later what it sounded like. Like, was it panicked? Strained? Desperate? And she shook her head and said that's the worst part. It was calm, level, almost polite. No urgency, no emotion. even when she repeated it for me, her voice went flat and even, like she was mimicking the exact tone. And that made my skin crawl in a way I can't really explain. So she does what you're not supposed to do. She calls back. Just instinct, I guess. Like, hello? And, are you okay? She's shining the flashlight into the trees, sweeping it back and forth, trying to catch a shape between the trunks. But there's nothing. No movement. No outline. No reflective eyes. Just brush and darkness and that fence line. And then, after a short pause, she hears something big crash through the woods. Not like a person stepping on twigs, not a careful walk, more like something heavy forcing its way through branches. She told me it sounded wrong for a human. Too big, too low, too solid. And she couldn't tell you why, but she said it didn't sound like it was moving on two legs. That's when the dogs finally lost it. Barking like crazy, hackles up, pulling toward the house like they'd suddenly remembered they could be scared. My mom didn't hesitate. She turned around and went straight back inside. And I remember this part so clearly because I was in my room watching a video on the TV, just minding my business. She comes in looking tense, eyes wide, and she blurts out, "Did your video say help me at any point?" And I was so confused, and honestly a little annoyed. Like, no? What are you talking about? I told her no, and her face just tightened. Like she'd been hoping I'd say yes so she could laugh it off. But Mom noticed the neighbor's place beyond the fence looked dark, like their power might have been out. That detail stuck with her, like maybe it meant something. Like maybe someone had wandered off in the dark. Or maybe it meant absolutely nothing, which somehow felt worse. And then there's the part that makes me feel even less normal about it, because it wasn't the first time something strange happened in that same area. Last fall, my boyfriend Eli and I were outside around dusk, not fully dark yet, but heading there. We were closer to that fence line, a little farther past the shed, and we heard this sound that I can only describe as a sharp inhale, like a gasp you make when you choke on water or swallow wrong. Except it didn't sound human. It repeated, again and again. And then it started getting closer, because we could hear branches snapping in the direction it was coming from, not like a squirrel hopping, not like a deer delicately moving, more like whatever it was didn't care if it made noise. We didn't stick around to investigate. We ran, full sprint back to the house. And just like my mom, we never saw anything. Not a shadow, not eyes, nothing. Afterward, we did that thing people always do. We went online, listened to animal calls, tried to match it to anything. Owls, foxes, elk, cougars, and nothing sounded even remotely close. So when Mom told me about the voice, I felt my stomach drop. Like my body understood something before my brain could make sense of it. Just this immediate dread, cold and heavy. We do have some sketchy people living a ways off. Not right next door, but close enough that you hear shouting sometimes. Folks with a reputation for stealing, for fighting late at night, for being in and out of trouble. That's my mom's most rational explanation. Maybe it was someone messing around. Maybe someone trying to lure her out. Maybe somebody strung out and wandering. But honestly, that explanation freaks me out too, because it means a real person might have been out there saying, "Help me," in that flat, calm voice, and then crashing through the woods toward her. Mom got goosebumps telling me, like even retelling it made her body remember. She admitted she debated for days whether she should even bring it up to me, because she didn't want to plant fear in my head. Too late, obviously. We still don't know what it was. We don't have an answer that fits neatly. But we did change things. Mom doesn't go outside alone after dark anymore, not even for quick stuff. and if she does step out, she's fully alert. Welcome back, my friends, to the Paranormal M channel. It's me again. I love being here and sharing my paranormal experiences with you. Thank you so much for sending in all of your own stories, and don't forget to drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Thanks for always supporting the channel and diving into these paranormal experiences together with me. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. So, I'm 19, and I still live at home in a pretty strict Christian household. My parents, Evelyn and Jonah, are also the kind of people who take spiritual stuff seriously. Like, seriously. They grew up with a mix of cultural traditions and superstitions, and my mom's faith is intense in a way that's hard to explain unless you've seen it up close. We moved into this place a little over 3 years ago. It's an older, rural property. Quiet roads, long stretches of trees, that kind of vibe. The house has been standing since the late 70s, but it's had renovations over the years. From the outside, it looks normal. Inside too, honestly. It doesn't scream creepy the way movies make haunted houses look. Here's the thing though. My mom has had experiences that made her very, very alert to the spiritual side of life. She's prayed over people before in ways that looked a lot like deliverance. She even did it for my dad once, years ago, when he was going through this dark, strange period. And she's told us stories, quietly, not dramatically, about people targeting her with things that felt like witchcraft. There was even a time she got sick in a way doctors couldn't properly explain. She still isn't fully well, and I think that's part of why our whole family has always been on edge about this sort of thing. And me? I've always felt like I pick up on things more than everyone else. Growing up, I'd get these heavy feelings in certain places, like walking into a room and instantly knowing something was off. Sometimes I'd dream things that felt like warnings. Not cute little symbolic dreams either. More like messages you wake up from with your heart racing, like your body understood it before your brain did. I don't walk around telling people I see spirits or anything, because I know how that sounds. But I will say this. I've had enough weird moments to not brush it off completely. That's why this house has messed with me so much. Because when we first moved in, I felt nothing. Nothing unusual. No pressure in the air, no weird chill, no sense of being watched. I remember thinking, okay, maybe we finally found a place that's peaceful. And then, after a few months, the nightmares started. I almost never get nightmares, so it stood out immediately. It was always the same theme. Something chasing me, something observing me, something I couldn't fully see but could feel. I'd wake up exhausted, like I'd been running all night. And around that same time, little things started happening in the house. Small sounds that didn't have a source. Footsteps in the hallway when everyone was asleep. Soft knocks that seemed to come from inside the walls. The kind of noises that are easy to explain away once, but not when they keep repeating. At first, my younger brother and I told Mom. She didn't laugh. She didn't call us dramatic. She just got this serious look, like she'd been expecting it, and she prayed through the whole house. Doors, windows, corners, everything. After that, it stopped. For a while. Then it would come back. That's been the cycle ever since. The dreams return, the noises start up. We tell Mom, she prays, it calms down. And then weeks later, sometimes months later, it starts all over again. Like something is testing the boundaries. Like it backs off, then creeps right back in. And the weirdest part, every time it's happening, it feels like the house drains us. Recently, it's gotten worse. My sister, Mara, has always been the least spiritual out of all of us. She's the practical one, the one who rolls her eyes a little, the one who would normally say, "It's probably the wind." So when she started telling me she'd been having dreams too, I didn't even know what to say. Because her dreams weren't random. They lined up with what was happening in the house. And the sounds, they're not subtle anymore. The small knocking turned into Loud, sharp knocks that seem to travel, like they start at one window, then shift to another door, then pop up on a wall down the hallway. Sometimes it sounds like someone is walking through the house at night, slow and deliberate, and it'll stop right outside my bedroom door like whoever, or whatever, is standing there is deciding whether to come in. And lately, it's been mostly my room. I'll hear banging that starts low on the wall, then moves upward into the ceiling, like it's circling the perimeter above me, over and over. Then it'll fade, and a few minutes later it'll happen again, like it's making loops. I've tried everything to rationalize it: pipes, animals, the house settling, but it doesn't behave like normal house noises. It feels intentional. I still haven't seen a full apparition, nothing like a figure in the doorway or a face in the mirror, but I've seen shadows. You know when you catch something out of the corner of your eye and you turn fast, expecting to see a person? That, except there's no person, just this quick movement slipping out of view. It happens enough that I'm not comfortable calling it my imagination anymore. And then tonight happened. Tonight is what finally pushed me from I'm unsettled to I'm done. I heard the banging start up again, same pattern. So I got up and went into Mara's room because I just needed a break. Her room is right beside mine, and I figured if anything happened, at least I wouldn't be alone. I stayed there for a while, trying to calm down, scrolling on my phone, pretending I wasn't listening. Eventually, I felt a little braver, like, okay, it's fine. Go back to your room. You're overreacting. So I walked back to my door. And outside my room, on the walls near the frame, along the ceiling line in the hallway right by my door, even clustered around the top corner, there were flies. A lot of them. Not like one or two that got in. I mean scattered in a way that looked wrong, like they'd gathered there. And the thing is, it's been cold lately. We haven't had flies in the house at all. Not in the kitchen, not by windows, not anywhere. But suddenly there's a whole group of them hovering around my room like it's the only warm, alive place in the entire house. I just stood there staring, feeling my stomach drop. And yeah, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I've watched enough spooky stuff online to know flies get mentioned a lot around dark energy, decay, that kind of thing. Normally, I'd laugh at myself for even thinking that. But when you've been dealing with nightmares, footsteps, banging, and shadow movement for years, a swarm of flies outside your bedroom doesn't feel like a random coincidence. It feels like a sign. And I'm not proud of how long it took me to get genuinely scared. I think I've been trying so hard not to be that person who blames everything on the paranormal that I kept swallowing my instincts. But I'm exhausted. I haven't been sleeping properly for days. It's messing with my work, my mood, my focus, everything. I feel like I'm living in this constant state of tension, waiting for the next sound. And the worst thought I can't shake is this: what if it escalates? What if it stops being knocks and shadows and turns into something physical? And right now, I don't. I've never really told anyone this out loud, not all the way through anyway. It's one of those things I keep tucked behind my ribs, because the second I pull it out, I can feel it again. And I haven't gone back to the place where it happened, not once. So, a couple years ago, 2021, late fall, I had just started seeing this girl named Mara. It was new. Like that weird in-between where you're not sure if you're just talking, or if you're already quietly building a life together without meaning to. We were still learning each other's coffee orders, you know? Less than a month into us being in each other's orbit, Mara got a call at work. I remember the way her face changed, like all the blood in her skin decided to leave at the same time. It was her best friend, Rowan, sobbing so hard she could barely get words out. Mara didn't even clock out properly. She just left. She drove to where Rowan said she was, and what she found? God, I still don't have clean language for it. Rowan had tried to end her life. Mara was the first one there. She did CPR until the paramedics arrived, hands shaking, voice breaking, just refusing to stop. But a day later, maybe two, the family made the decision to take Rowan off life support, and she passed. I didn't know all the details at the time, not like that. I just knew Mara was suddenly carrying something massive, and I didn't want her to carry it alone. Fast forward to last summer, like mid-July of 2023. Mara and I were out driving with the windows down, just floating through the day. Warm sun, music turned up, stupid jokes, laughing so hard my stomach hurt. The kind of day that feels like it's healing you without making a big deal about it. And then it happened. I know that sounds dramatic, like I'm trying to make it a movie moment, but it was exactly that sharp. 1 second I was fine. The next second it was like something inside me slammed on the brakes. We were on these back roads, ones I didn't recognize. There was this long fence running along the right side, the kind you see around old property lines. And when the fence ended, I swear to you, it felt like I drove straight into a wall, except nothing touched the car. My chest tightened so fast I thought I was choking. My hands went cold. It was panic, but it was also deeper than panic. Like grief that didn't belong to me, like a sudden drop into heavy, thick sadness. My throat closed up, and I started crying before I even understood why. Silent at first, then not so silent. Mara asked, "Hey, what's going on? Are you okay?" And I tried to answer. I really did. But all I could force out was, "I want to leave." That was it. That's all I had. So we turned around. And here's the part that messes with me the most. The farther we drove away from that spot, the more my body let go. Like the pressure was tied to the land itself. My breathing came back in pieces. The crying slowed down, but the air in the car stayed different. We went quiet. Even the music felt wrong. The rest of that day was like walking around with bruised lungs. A couple days later, Mara brought it up again. She asked me, gently, "Do you know where we were when you started freaking out?" And I laughed a little, because I honestly didn't. I told her, "No, how would I know? I've never been down that road in my life." Then she said, "That's where I found Rowan." And I felt my whole body go still. Not fear this time, just that slow, sinking understanding. Like my nervous system had recognized something before my mind could catch up. Like my body knew a story my brain hadn't been told. I haven't gone back since. Mara hasn't either. Part of me is curious in this morbid science experiment way. Like, would it happen again? Was it some random fluke? Bad timing? A panic attack I didn't see coming? But another part of me, honestly, the louder part, doesn't want to test it. I don't want to feel that kind of sadness again. It wasn't just, I'm upset. It was dread. It was grief with teeth. And lately, I don't know. This week has felt off in general. My anxiety has been louder than it should be, even with my meds. I've spaced out a few times, had these vivid nightmares, and now my mind keeps circling back to that day like it's trying to solve it. Like if I can explain it, it won't haunt me. I'm in my 20s. I live out in a rural part of the South. Quiet roads, long stretches of nothing, the kind of places where your thoughts get really loud. I'm not religious, but I do believe there are things we don't understand. I've never had some big paranormal moment or anything, but I have had those random chills in certain places, like your body perks up for no obvious reason. Still, nothing has ever hit me like that road did. Nothing. And what really gets me is the timing, because it was close to a year after Rowan died. Not exact, but close enough that it makes you wonder if dates leave fingerprints. I don't know what I'm trying to say exactly. Maybe I just needed to finally say it out loud to someone, because I've been carrying it quietly, and quiet things have a way of growing. And I keep thinking, maybe my body was responding to grief that had soaked into a place. Or maybe it was empathy, or coincidence, or stress finding a door to come through. Or maybe I'm just a person who drove down the wrong road on the wrong day, and my nervous system did what nervous systems do. I just know it felt real, and I know I never want to feel it again. Hey, so I want to tell you about something that happened on this little family outing that honestly still gives me chills in the best way. A few of us went to this gimmicky tourist spot in Des Moines called the Cabinet of Echoes. You know the type. Old creaky building, dim lighting, haunted objects behind glass, spooky labels with dramatic backstories. It's the kind of place my brain normally files under fun but fake. But this time, something felt different. We paid a little extra to borrow one of those EMF readers, the handheld gadget that flashes and beeps when it picks up electromagnetic activity. I've always been skeptical of those because there are a million boring reasons they can spike. And at first, that's exactly what it was. A few little blips near some creepy porcelain dolls, nothing that made me pause. Then we walked past this disturbing carnival poster painting, like a grinning jester or something, and the EMF reader absolutely lost its mind. I mean, bright flashing, frantic beeping, constant. It happened over and over in the exact same spot. So right away we're like, okay, junction box, wiring, a speaker, a hidden effect. The logical part of my brain was actually relieved because it was so obvious. We decided to prove it. So we go downstairs into the basement, thinking we'll find a bunch of thick wiring running underneath that wall. And, yep, there it was. Conduit, cables, the whole deal. Case closed. We all kind of laughed like, all right, cute trick. But then, we kept walking around down there, just sweeping the EMF reader out of curiosity, and it started pinging near this old wooden display case tucked against a brick wall. And this wasn't near the obvious wiring we'd just found. The basement was barely lit, mostly shadows and that red-tinted glow from this section they jokingly called the Inferno Room, or something equally dramatic. At first we thought, maybe there's another wire behind the bricks. But the reader kept pulling us closer, like it was guiding us to something specific. Inside the cabinet, in the darkest bottom corner, low enough that you had to crouch, there was a doll. Her name on the little card was Maribel. And here's where it got strange. The EMF reader would stay calm until we actually looked at her. Not near her, not in front of the cabinet. Specifically, when we crouched down, aimed a flashlight at her face, and shined it into her eyes. The second that light hit her eyes, the EMF reader went absolutely wild again. And the moment we looked away, like turned our head even slightly, the beeping would stop. Not gradually, not fading, just off, like a switch. So of course, we're all doing it again and again, because we don't want to convince ourselves of something stupid. Flashlight on her eyes, chaos. Look away, silence. Back to her, chaos. Look away, silence. There were 4 of us witnessing it, and we started getting that weird, quiet feeling people get when they don't want to say the spooky thing out loud, but everyone's thinking it anyway. The little placard said something like, a young girl's spirit was attached to the doll. Some sad, sweet story. Normally I roll my eyes at that stuff, but in the moment it actually made this unsettling kind of emotional sense. Like, if this was all real, it didn't feel angry. It felt needy, like someone desperately trying to be noticed. We eventually said goodbye and went to look at other things, because honestly, we needed to breathe for a second. Before we left the basement, we went back one more time, kind of gently, like, "Hey, we're heading out." The responses were still there, but softer, less intense, like the moment had passed. Then we went upstairs for this sit challenge thing, where a couple of my relatives sat alone in a creepy room for 10 minutes while the rest of us waited outside. While they did that, my brother Eli and I went back down to check on Maribel again. And nothing. The EMF reader barely moved. No chaos. No big reaction. Just normal. So we stood there for a second, almost disappointed, almost relieved. Then we said, "All right, goodbye, Maribel." And the second we said it, like right on top of the last word, the EMF reader spiked one final time. Just one intense flare, like a last little grab at our sleeve. Then it went quiet again. And I know how it sounds. I know. Believe me, I ran through every explanation I could. Wiring, interference, the flashlight itself, our phones, the building, the gadget being cheap, us accidentally standing in the same spot, everything. But the way it responded to eye contact and the light, and then the way it stayed quiet until that last goodbye, it didn't feel random. It felt like we'd stumbled into something we weren't even looking for. And honestly, if the museum moved Maribel upstairs where more people could see her, I kind of think she'd like that. Because whatever that was down in the dark corner, real or not, it felt like someone who didn't want to be forgotten. So, I should probably start by saying this. I grew up pretty religious, but I was also the kind of person who rolled my eyes at ghost stories. Demons, shadows, entities. I'd hear people talk and just assume it was imagination, stress, maybe someone working themselves into a fear spiral. I truly didn't think any of it was real. This was back around 2009, when my grandmother Maribel wasn't doing well. We brought her to stay with us so we could look after her. Most days we also had a caregiver. Her name was Lucia, who helped out for long stretches of the day. I was in university then, and honestly, I barely interacted with Lucia. A quick hello, a polite thank you, that kind of thing. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would have made me think anything unusual was happening in our house. But one night, my mom, Elena, pulled me aside and said, really quietly, like she didn't want to give the words too much power, "Something strange is going on here." Now, my mom has always been sensitive to this kind of thing. She had rough experiences when she was younger, stuff she still won't fully describe. She prays every day. She's deeply faithful. So when she told me she'd been seeing a shadow moving through the house, I wanted to be gentle. But in my head, I was thinking, she's exhausted. She's worried about Grandma. Stress is playing tricks. She described it like this: a dark shape, not a person exactly, more like a presence, darting past doorways, always quick, always just out of reach, like it didn't want to be seen but didn't care if it was noticed. I nodded, tried to reassure her, and then I went back to my life, studying, deadlines, the usual. I really thought that would be the end of it, and then it happened to me. It was a completely normal day. After lunch, I left the kitchen and stepped into this hallway that led to the stairs. That's all it was to me. A hallway. A place you pass through without thinking. I usually walked straight toward the stairs without even looking around. But that day, the second I stepped out, something, call it instinct, call it whatever, made me turn my head the other way. Like my body reacted before my brain could argue. And that's when I saw it. It was the blackest shadow I've ever seen. Not dim corner dark. Not lights are off dark. This was unnatural. Like the absence of light had weight. It was tall, easily over 7 feet, and it didn't walk so much as move. It felt like it was gliding, floating forward, straight toward me. No face, no features, no expression, just a shape, a void. And the strangest part is, it didn't feel angry. It didn't feel threatening in the way horror movies teach you to expect. It felt empty, hopeless, like something that had forgotten what it meant to be alive. It came right up to me, and then, this is the part that still makes my skin tighten when I think about it. It didn't go around me. It went through me, like I wasn't solid, like it wasn't solid, like the world just failed to agree on what was real for a moment, and then it was gone, just vanished. No sound, no wind, no dramatic exit. 1 second it was there, the next second it wasn't. I stood in the hallway, frozen, staring at nothing, trying to force my brain to explain it. I remember my heart was pounding, but I couldn't even move, and all I could think was, that's what Mom meant. Years later, this part is almost worse, because it makes it feel less like a random hallucination and more like a piece of something old. We were talking as a family, just casual conversation. My dad, Raphael, mentioned something I'd never heard before. He used to do contracting work, and he'd been involved in projects around our neighborhood when it was still being developed. There weren't many records, no clear stories, just that it used to connect to something else that doesn't exist anymore. And I'm not saying I know what happened there. I don't. I can't prove anything. But I'll tell you this. When I remember that shadow, what stays with me isn't fear. It's the feeling. That heavy, dim, hollow energy. Like despair given a shape. Like for a split second, I brushed up against the kind of loneliness that doesn't even cry anymore. It just empties out. And even now, all these years later, if I'm honest with you, sometimes I can still feel it in that part of the house. Not like it's there all the time. More like the air remembers. Like the hallway kept a stain you can't see. Believe me or don't, I don't blame anyone who thinks this is all in my head. I used to be that person too. But I know what I saw. And I know what it felt like to have something pass straight through me and leave behind a kind of sadness I'd never felt before. So my partner and I moved into the place we live now a little over 5 years ago. It's out on Long Island, in this old colonial that was built back in 1909. Creaky floors, narrow hallways, the kind of house that feels like it's holding on to 100 years of secrets. And from pretty much the moment we unpacked, things started happening. Not every day, not even every month, but enough that it settled into the back of my mind like a splinter. The first time still makes my stomach tighten when I think about it. I'd left work early because I was coming down with something. Feverish. That heavy cold feeling where your bones even ache. I went straight upstairs, crawled into bed, and I'd only been lying there a couple minutes when I heard someone coming up the stairs. Not a creak. Not the house settling. Actual footsteps. Clear, deliberate steps. And our staircase is the kind with 2 flights and a little landing in the middle, so you can hear the pattern. Step after step up the first part, then on the landing, then the second set of steps, like whoever it was taking their time. Our bedroom door is right at the top. The steps stop directly outside it. My brain tried to be sensible. It's just Owen. Maybe he came home early. But it didn't line up. He wasn't supposed to be home for at least another hour. And I don't know how to explain this without sounding dramatic, but I knew it wasn't him. Like my body figured it out before my thoughts did. I went completely still. Every sound in the house felt sharp. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, and I didn't even want to breathe in case whoever, or whatever, was on the other side could hear me. When Owen actually came home later, I asked him if he'd come in early and maybe gone back out again, because I was trying so hard to make it make sense. He looked at me like I was half joking and half sick delirious and told me no, he'd just gotten home. He didn't really believe me. But then, about a month later, the same thing happened to him. He was home alone, laid down for a nap, and heard the footsteps come up the stairs. First flight, at the landing, second flight, and then stopping right at the top like someone was standing there. That was the first time I saw his face change in that way where you can tell someone's trying not to admit they're scared. After that, he stopped brushing it off. We both started living with this quiet feeling that the house wasn't always empty. A couple years later, we had our baby, our little boy, Miles. One night, I was up feeding him, and back then I used to go downstairs so Owen could sleep. He was back at work, and I was trying to be considerate, you know? So I'm in the living room in this big, soft chair, Miles finally drifting off in my arms, his warm little weight against my chest. And then I hear it again. Footsteps upstairs. Not in the stairwell this time, in the upstairs hallway. Like someone was walking back and forth above me. And what got me was, I hadn't heard our bedroom door open, and that door is old and loud. It sticks. You always hear it. So I just sat there frozen, holding my sleeping baby, staring at the ceiling, listening. About 10 minutes later, Owen actually does get up to use the bathroom, and I call up to him, trying to sound casual even though my voice felt tight, and I asked if he'd been up earlier. And he said, "No, I just woke up now." That was it for me. I never fed Miles downstairs again after that. From that night on, I stayed in our room, even if it meant we both slept less. I just couldn't sit down there alone with that feeling anymore. She lives out of state, and she was so excited to babysit, so Owen and I could finally have a proper date night. It was our first real night out since having Miles, and we kept it simple. Dinner, talking like normal adults again, laughing for the first time in forever. When we got home, my mom looked wrong, like someone had pulled the color out of her face. She told us she'd been sitting in the rocking chair with Miles asleep in her arms, just humming softly, enjoying the quiet, when she heard footsteps outside the bedroom door. And then, 3 loud bangs. Not little knocks, not the house popping. She said it sounded like someone hit the door with their fists, hard, like they were angry. She jumped up immediately, opened the door, because of course she did, she's my mom, and there was nobody there. Nothing. Empty hallway. Quiet house. She said she just stood there holding Miles, listening, waiting for something else to happen, and after that, she didn't want to be alone in the room again. She waited for us to get home like she was counting the minutes. And ever since then, she's been nervous about staying with us. She'll visit, but she'll book a hotel now. She tries to laugh it off, but I can tell she doesn't want to talk about it too much. After that, the really big stuff seemed to fade. We've had little things, sounds that don't fit, the occasional weird chill, that feeling of being watched when you're sure you're alone. But nothing like those nights. Miles is older now, and once in a while he'll say something that makes me pause. Like recently he told me, very casually, that the walls in my room talk. And I tried to keep my face neutral, because I don't want to feed into it or scare him. I told myself it's just toddler imagination, cartoons, dreams, all of that. But still, it stuck with me. And honestly, I'm grateful it's quiet now. I don't want anything in this house, real or imagined, to ever make my son afraid. Even if part of me will always wonder what was walking up those stairs, and why it always stopped right outside the door. Okay, this is going to sound completely unhinged, and I get it. But I'm not telling you this as some spooky campfire flex. I'm telling you because there were other people there. There were moments where it wasn't just in my head. So, quick backstory. I was born in the US, but before that my parents and my 2 older brothers had been bouncing around, mostly between Colombia and Argentina. When we finally settled in the States, we landed in the Maryland suburbs outside DC and rented this older house that had belonged to a Japanese family years earlier. And the neighborhood gossip, always with the neighborhood gossip, was that the father who owned it started struggling mentally after moving in. Eventually, he took his own life. Nobody could ever tell me if it happened inside the house or somewhere else, but either way, the house got a reputation. Apparently, a few families rented it before us, and every single one had something catastrophic happen. Like not, oh, the faucet leaks and the vibes are weird. I mean, life-derailing stuff that made them pack up and leave fast. Then my family moved in. I was barely a toddler. By the time I was 4, that house felt like it had rules I didn't understand. I remember things vividly. Sounds, shadows, that feeling you get when you're little and you can tell the air in a room is wrong. And there's another layer to it that's hard to say out loud. My dad started changing in that house. He got paranoid in this way that made our whole family walk on eggshells. There were nights my mom was genuinely afraid he'd hurt her. It was the early 80s. We were Lebanese, and back then, people just didn't call it what it was. They didn't step in. They didn't protect you. You just survived it. And that's when the dreams started. They weren't normal kid dreams. They were the same dream, over and over, like it was on a schedule. In it, I'm running, but it's that awful slow motion running where your legs feel like wet cement. And there's this glowing orb, blue-purple, like a little planet made of light. Sometimes it's in my hand. Sometimes it floats right beside me like it's tethered to me. And I'm terrified, because I know I'm being chased. The man chasing me is always the same. Tall, pale, bright blue eyes. Handsome in this weird, unsettling way. Like if you looked too long, you'd feel sick. And his outfit was always the same too. Black brimmed hat, kind of like a fedora. Long black coat, dark suit, all of it. I think he wore gloves, but what I remember most is that I could always see his face. No smile, no anger, no expression at all, just purpose. Like he wasn't hunting me because he hated me. He was hunting me because it was his job. And every time, right before he could grab me, or grab the glowing thing, a woman would appear. Sometimes from behind a tree, sometimes stepping out of a doorway, sometimes getting out of a car like she'd been waiting. She'd call my name, clear as day, and I'd run to her, and the second I reached her, I'd wake up. That dream happened multiple times a week from when I was 4 until I was 9, and then life took this hard left turn. A few months after we got there, I developed something that was maybe arthritis? To this day, I'm not even sure what it was. All I knew was that once a week, I needed an injection. We'd go to a nearby town, mostly Catholic families, and a nurse would give me the shot at her house. The first time my mom and I went, the nurse opened the door and I absolutely lost it. I screamed, "I know you! I know you!" My mom looked horrified. The nurse looked confused. Like, kid, what? Her name was Nadia, and I swear to you, she wasn't similar to the woman in my dreams. She was her. Same face, same voice, same smile, same exact shade of lipstick, like I could have picked it out of a lineup. Even the jewelry, this little gold chain, the way it caught the light, my stomach dropped because I'd seen it 1,000 times in my sleep. For 5 years, several times a week, that woman had been the safe place in my nightmare. And now she was standing in front of me, holding a tray like, "Hi, sweetheart, come on in." For about a month, I saw her every week. Every time, I tried to get answers the only way a 7-year-old can. I'd ask questions sideways. I'd stare too hard. I'd say weird little things like, "Do you know my name?" Or, "Have you ever been in America?" Trying to make her flinch, trying to catch a crack in the mask. But she never gave me anything. She stayed warm, gentle, funny, always smiling at my mom like this was just a silly kid moment, and she'd brush me off in a way that felt intentional, like she understood exactly what I was asking and was choosing not to touch it. Then my treatment ended. We stopped going. I never saw her again. But the dreams didn't stop. She was still there, still saving me right at the end, like she hadn't gone anywhere. And then came my 9th birthday. A couple weeks after I turned 9, my parents and I were driving back to our village from Beirut. I can't tell you how long we were in the car. Wartime driving messes with time, but in my memory, it feels endless, like a whole day stuffed into a single ride. At one point, we stopped at a checkpoint, Syrian soldiers, which was common then. My dad handed over his papers, and I looked out the window to my right. And there he was, the man from my dreams, in real life. Same hat, same long black coat, same shape of his body as he walked, like the dream had stepped through a door and joined the street. He was moving along the side of a building, then he turned a corner, and even that turn looked exaggerated, like his coat flared back in this dramatic sweep, like it was choreographed. I remember grabbing at my mom, panicked, whispering, yelling, "Mom, Mom, that's him! That's the guy from my dreams! I just saw him!" And her reaction was small, like she didn't know what to do with it. A distracted, "Huh, weird." The kind of response adults give when their brains are busy surviving bigger things. But it didn't end there. Later, maybe an hour, maybe more, we reached this lively town, Dur El Chouer. Cobblestone streets, a big fountain in the center, cafes packed with people. It felt loud and bright and normal for the first time in that whole drive. We stopped at a crosswalk. I was sitting on my mom's lap in the front seat because I'd gotten bored in the back and insisted. Classic kid behavior. And then my mom stiffened. A man was walking in front of the car, and he was staring straight at me like I was the only thing in the world. It was him. And my dad, hot-headed, protective, loud, he got out of the car. He started yelling, threatening, doing that whole, "Hey, I'm talking to you, come here" thing. Full volume, full posture, like he could intimidate the universe into behaving. But the man didn't even glance at him. Not once. His eyes stayed on me. Calm, empty, fixed. Then he just walked away. And here's the part that still makes my skin go cold. People tried to stop him. The driver in the car behind us jumped out, and a couple bystanders moved in too. They reached for him, like grabbed his arm, grabbed his shoulder, and the second their hands touched him, they let go. Not like he shoved them, not like he hit them, more like their bodies refused. Like instinct took over and said, "Nope, don't hold on to that." And he kept walking like nothing had happened. After that day, after seeing him that close, after my mom seeing him too, after the whole little scene in the street, I never had the dream again, not once. It was like whatever thread connected us snapped or got cut. And that's it. That's the story. I'm in my 40s now. I've spent years trying to make sense of it. I've asked people who claim they can see things. I've tried to rationalize it. Trauma, stress, war, childhood imagination. I've gone through every explanation I can live with. But I can't explain the nurse. I can't explain the man. I can't explain how real it felt, or why it ended the moment it finally became undeniable. And the part that messes with me the most is this. If it was all just a dream, why did it feel like it had a plan? Like it was leading me somewhere? Because I still don't have answers. I just have the memories, and the fact that I wasn't the only one who saw him. So, I've had a lot of strange encounters over the years, but there are three that still sit in my chest when I think about them, like my body remembers before my brain does. The first one happened when my family was house-sitting for a friend. We'd stayed there for a bit during a move, and honestly, the place was already kind of loud at night. Not loud like people talking, more like footsteps that didn't quite have a source. Little thumps and creaks that made you pause and listen. But for a while, it was just background weirdness. Then one day, it had been raining hard for what felt like forever, and my dad, Jerry, was outside checking the foundation and gutters. He called in and asked if I could run down to the basement and make sure the laundry area wasn't leaking. Now, here's the part that makes it worse. It was a small 3-unit building with neighbors on both sides, and the whole place carried this heavy history. A fatal accident in the backyard years ago, a tragedy in one of the units, a baby lost in another not long before we were there. I didn't know all the details at the time, but you could feel that something had happened there, like the walls had soaked it up. So I go inside and immediately, I get that sharp feeling like I'm not supposed to be there, like I've walked into someone's room without knocking. I try to shrug it off, but the second I reach the top of the basement stairs, the hair on the back of my neck stands straight up. I turn on the lights anyway. I tell myself I'm being dramatic, and I start down. And I swear to you, the air down there felt thick, like walking through a damp, heavy fog. Every step closer to the laundry area made it worse. My stomach tightened. My ears felt pressurized, like before a storm breaks. Then I reached the doorway and looked in, and the far corner of the laundry room wasn't just dark. It was wrong dark. Like the darkness had weight, like it was pooled there, swallowing up the corner of the room. And then, clear as anything, I heard one word. Run. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't a suggestion. It was loud and sharp, like someone barking it right into my head. I didn't argue. I didn't think. I just moved. I tore up those stairs as fast as my legs could carry me, and I could feel something tracking me along the wall behind me. Like that blackness was crawling after me, chasing me upward. But the second I hit the top step, it stopped, like it couldn't cross that line. I didn't stand there to test it. I flicked off the lights, bolted out, and didn't go back down there again unless I absolutely had to. That moment stayed with me for a long, long time, because it didn't feel like a spooky story. It felt like a warning. The second one was months later, still in that same general area. It was Halloween night, and I was with my boyfriend at the time, Mason. We drove out to his grandma's place on the reserve because she had a bag of candy and a few things she wanted to send home with him. He said it would take 2 minutes, so I stayed in the car. It wasn't pitch black. There were streetlights around, that weird orange glow they give off. I was sitting in the passenger seat, kind of zoning out, looking through the window, when I noticed a shadow near the edge of the property. At first, it just looked like a tall man standing by a streetlight. Still. Too still. I watched it, thinking, okay, maybe it's someone smoking. Maybe it's just how the light's hitting the grass. And then it dropped. Not like crouched, not like bent down. It dropped onto all fours, fast, unnatural, and then it bolted into the tall grass like an animal. My stomach went cold. I lost sight of it immediately, and then the car started reacting. The back door handle on one side lifted, like someone was about to open it, and then snapped back down. Then the other back door handle did the same thing, then mine. One after another, like something making its way around the car, testing every entry point. I was frozen, like I couldn't even breathe right. I remember staring at my own door handle, waiting for it to lift again. And right then, the house door opened. Mason came stepping out, candy in hand, and the shadow, wherever it was, moved back into that long grass at the corner like it was retreating. That one stuck with me because it felt deliberate, like it knew I was alone and wanted me to know it knew. The third experience happened in a different town in the summer when I was helping my mom, Elena, at an antique shop. We were sorting through boxes from a new haul, dust everywhere, that old paper smell, the usual. And I found this small glass jar. Nothing huge or expensive looking, just a little jar with an ornate silver lid. Inside was this gray, dusty stuff, and these tiny blue-purple flower buds mixed in. When I cracked it open, there was the faintest, sweet smell, like dried wildflowers. And the second I touched it, something in me went, "Oh," like it was calling my name. I tried to ignore it. I left it at the store for a few days, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept getting this persistent thought, bring it home. Not, it would be nice to have, more like a tug, a pull. So I did. I set it on my desk and went about my night. Late evening, everyone in the house asleep. I was in my bedroom in a recliner, playing a game, just relaxing. And then my curtain snapped to one side, hard. My door was closed. The window was closed. No fan, no draft, nothing. I stared at it, trying to rationalize. And that's when I started noticing movement in the room, just at the edges. The curtain kept shifting. Small sounds started up. Floorboards creaking like someone was pacing behind my chair. Then it got worse. The back of my chair started jerking, like it was being hit from behind. Not bumped, punched. Over and over, like a fist slamming into the chair and knocking into my back. I started praying, out loud, whispering, whatever I could manage. And it laughed. I swear to you, it laughed. I kept praying anyway, and then I said, firmly, "You're not welcome here." Nothing changed. If anything, it felt angrier, like my words meant nothing. So I did the only thing I could think of. I ran to my parents' room to wake my mom, because she's had experiences her whole life, and I thought maybe she'd know what to do, anything. But I could not wake her. I shook her shoulder. I said her name. I tried again and again. She was breathing, lightly snoring, completely unreachable. I stood there in the dark, feeling so alone it made me want to cry. And then I went back to my room, slow, like walking toward a barking dog you can't see. I sat down, kept praying, kept hoping it would stop. After what felt like forever, probably around half an hour, it gradually settled. The noises faded. The pressure in the air eased. And then, nothing. Like someone turned it off. The next morning, I didn't negotiate with myself. I took that jar straight back to the shop and left it there. No more tug, no more obsession, just relief. And that was it. Most of the odd experiences I've had haven't been bad. Some were even comforting in a strange way. But those three? Those were the ones that felt hostile. Like whatever it was, it didn't want me there. Anyway, I'm curious, what's the most what the actual hell experience you've ever had? Alright, so let me tell you about tonight, because I'm still trying to make it make sense. My mom, Mary Ann, has been recovering from a stroke. She's doing better, slowly, day by day, but she still has those nights where she's tired in a way you can't really fix. So I went over there after work, like I usually do, and I hooked my phone up to the upstairs TV with an HDMI cable so she could watch a show without squinting at a little screen. Nothing fancy, just one of those small I love you things you do without saying it out loud. Then I did the other son stuff. I started mowing her yard because, if I'm being honest, I've kind of taken over her place as my home base. Her garage is basically my tool shed now. Half my projects, my ladder, my bags, random equipment. It's not pretty, but it works. And here's another detail. Trash pickup is Monday where she lives, and my place right now is a mess because I don't have running water, which also means I don't have trash service. So on Sundays, I bag everything up, toss it in the back of my SUV, and bring it to Mom's so I can roll it out with hers. Not glamorous, but that's where I'm at. So I'm mowing, and this storm front starts rolling in, one of those sudden, heavy ones, like the sky just decides to dump a bucket. I stop early because the rain gets ridiculous. I'm soaked, the yard's a lake, so I head into the garage to grab the municipal trash can and drag it out to the curb. And that's when the first weird thing happened. The garage door was open during the storm, but the trash cans and recycling bin were way inside, like a good 12 or 15 feet in. And one of the cans, the lid was wet. Not damp like humidity, not misted, wet like it had been rained on. But the sides were dry, the wheels were dry. Just the top looked like it had caught rainfall. I remember standing there with my hand on the handle thinking, that's odd. Then I brushed it off because, honestly, when you're carrying your life around in tool bags and garbage bags, you don't have the luxury of stopping to be creeped out. Except I had to move a ton of stuff to even reach the cans. Earlier in the week, I'd done a side job and dumped everything near the garage entrance. Tool bags, a folding work platform, a big extension ladder. It was jammed between my old project truck and 2 motorcycles. No clear path. So I'm shoving things aside, muttering under my breath, trying not to scrape a bike or slam into the truck. I get the first can out, roll it to the curb, come back inside, and I tell Mom, I'll be back later tonight. I've got a little downtime, but I still need to drag the recycling out. A couple hours pass. I come back up, and now I'm going for the recycling bin and the second trash can. We'd bought a second can because, more space, but the city refuses to empty it because it isn't the official one. So it mostly just sits in there being useless. And when I get to it, same thing. The lid looks like it's been rained on. I look at Mom and I go, "Hey, did you take this outside earlier?" And she's like, "No." But I press it. I'm tired. I'm already on edge from the storm, and in my head I'm trying to solve it logically. "Are you sure? Because it's wet on top like it was outside." She gets defensive, rightfully, honestly, and she says, "Eli, I watched you take the other trash can out. I didn't touch anything." So now I'm standing there feeling like a jerk and also feeling unsettled. To calm myself down, I check the camera that points from the garage toward the street, thinking maybe it caught something. Maybe the garage door blew rain in. Maybe something shifted. That bothered me enough that I walked through the house, room to room, checking doors, checking corners, listening. Just me and Mom. Nothing. No signs of anyone. So I tell her goodnight, I lock everything up, and I leave. I drive maybe half a mile, not far. And my phone rings. It's Mom, and she goes, "The TV just shut off by itself, and the hall light keeps turning on and off." I spun right around. I mean, instantly. That adrenaline, "something's wrong with my mom," panic hits, and I'm back at her driveway in minutes. She meets me, wide-eyed, pointing toward the hallway like she's afraid to look at it too long. She says, "It turned on and off twice right after you pulled away." I go straight to the living room and start looking for the TV remote because sometimes it's just the remote. And sure enough, I dig it out from between the couch cushions like it's been hiding there all along. I hold it up like, "Okay, that part, solved." But Mom looks at me and goes, "So what about the hall light?" And I don't have anything for her. I just don't. I'm standing there thinking about the wet trash can lids, the camera cutting out, the light flipping, the TV going dark, and I can feel myself getting angry, not at her, but at the situation, at my own fear, at the fact that my brain wants to blame something. And I had yelled earlier, not proud of it. I'd basically interrogated my mom like she was sneaking trash cans outside in the rain for fun. So I apologize. I tell her I'm sorry, that I'm just stressed, and I love her, and I'm not mad at her. I hug her, like a real hug, the kind where you hold on an extra second because you're grateful she's standing there. Then I walk out again. I step onto the porch, hit the lock button on my key fob, and I hear music coming from the garage, like a radio is on. I freeze. I'm not even joking. I just stood there with my thumb still on the fob, trying to process what I was hearing. And at the exact same time, my phone rings again. It's Mom, and she picks up immediately and says, before I can even speak, "There's music coming from the basement." I just said, "I hear it too." I hit the garage door opener, the door rolls up, and sure enough, one of my old radios is blasting like somebody just decided to throw on a song at full volume. I run in and shut it off, staring at the dial like it's going to explain itself. It hadn't been on. I know it hadn't. I'd been in that garage multiple times tonight, moving things, dragging cans, looking for answers. It wasn't playing a minute earlier. And listen, I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm just telling you what happened. But tonight felt wrong in this quiet, personal way, like the house was nudging us, poking at the edges of normal. And the creepiest part? It wasn't even the music. It was Mom's voice on the phone, small, tired, scared, asking me to explain something I couldn't explain. I've had strange experiences before. I've seen things I can't neatly label. I just never expected it to happen in her house. Not like this. Not on a night I was just trying to do the kind sun stuff. Mow the lawn, take out the trash, help my mom watch a show. And I swear to you, I'm going to be thinking about that wet trash can lid for a long, long time. So, before I even start, I need you to know I've read a ton of posts about astral spiders, and what happened to me is a little different. And honestly, I just want someone out there to tell me I'm not losing it. When I was a kid, maybe 6 or 7, I started getting nightmares. But it wasn't a bunch of different dreams. It was the same one, over and over, for years. It always began with me waking up in my bed, in the dark, and getting up like it was totally normal. Everything looked exactly like my real house. Same layout, same shapes in the darkness, even the way the hallway felt when you walked into it. And that's the thing. There was this heavy, wrong feeling from the second I stepped into the hall. Like the air was colder, thicker, like I shouldn't be there. I couldn't see much, but I'd shuffle down the hallway anyway, and at the far end there would always be something waiting. Not a normal spider, not even a big one. It was like a spider-shaped person, or a person-shaped spider. Too tall, too thin. Its limbs looked bent the wrong way, like they'd been snapped and healed badly. And even though the room was dark, it was darker than the dark, like it was made of absence. And then it would vanish. But here's the part that still makes my stomach twist. Every time I had that dream again, it was closer. A little closer each night, like it was learning the distance between us. Eventually, I started dreading sleep. I'd lay there trying to keep my eyes open, bargaining with myself. Just stay awake. Just stay awake. Then one night, the dream changed. Instead of walking down the hallway, I got out of bed and went to my closet. I don't even know why, like something pulled me there. I reached toward the door, and the second it cracked open, something yanked my arm so hard it hurt. I remember it leaning in, staring at me, and I couldn't make out its face. Just this sense of attention, like being studied up close. And I jolted awake, heart racing, arm burning like I'd really been grabbed. Not long after that, I got so scared I asked to sleep in my grandma's room. I thought being near someone would help. But that night, this is the part I still struggle to explain. These black, scribbly shapes appeared right in front of my face in the darkness. Not like normal floaters or imagination stuff. They were violent, frantic, like something sketching itself into the air. They moved so aggressively it actually gave me a pounding headache, and I remember pressing my hands to my temples and wanting to cry. I tried telling my dad the next day that something felt wrong, that something was happening, but I was a kid. He brushed it off like I was being dramatic, like kids just get nightmares. Then time passed. Life happened. My grandparents were gone by then, and I was maybe 12 or 13 when this next part happened. I'd gone out with a boy I shouldn't have been seeing. Older, trouble, that kind of thing. I remember he took me to a small church first, then we went to a movie. I came home late, got in trouble immediately, and I was so drained I just collapsed on the couch in the living room. We had this game console, one of those with the handheld screen controller. I remember checking the time on it, then rolling over so I was facing the couch cushions, away from the room. And then, it came back. That same frozen fear poured over me, like someone dumped ice water inside my chest. I suddenly felt like if I turned around, I'd see something I couldn't handle. And I held still, trying to convince myself it was nothing, trying to be brave. But I finally turned. I remember the sound I made, half gasp, half sob. I cried right there on the couch, feeling ridiculous and terrified at the same time. Years later, my dad told me something that made my skin crawl all over again. He said he'd seen something in the house. He called it a demon. He said he believed it came up from the basement stairs one night, moved toward him, and touched him, like it wanted him to know it was real. And it wasn't just him. My stepmom, Mara, once told me she saw something crawling down the stairs from the direction of my room. And my dog, Benny, used to sit facing one specific wall and bark for what felt like forever. Like he could see something I couldn't. Hours, sometimes. Just barking and bristling and refusing to leave. And there were nights where I'd be in bed, trying to sleep, and I would feel the mattress shift, like weight settling beside me, like someone climbing in, lying down, getting comfortable. Sometimes I'd feel it near my legs, sometimes behind my back, and I'd go completely still because I didn't know what else to do. Even now, after all these years, it still feels like something is there. Not always visible, not always loud, just present. Like a pressure in the room that doesn't match anything normal. And I know how it sounds. I do. That's why I'm saying this the way I am. I just want someone to tell me I'm not crazy. That I'm not alone in this. That there's a name for the feeling of being watched by something you can't prove exists. And I don't even know if this matters, but my family has ties to Freemasonry. I don't know if that connects to anything at all. I just know what I've lived through, what I've felt, and what I've seen. So if you're listening, please, tell me I'm not crazy. Okay, so this still gives me chills when I think about it, and it's been years. My partner Eli and I had just signed a lease for this little 2-story place, and we're doing the official walkthrough with the landlord. He owned 2 houses right next to each other, ours and the one next door, and he was acting perfectly normal until we weren't. The house was completely empty. No furniture, no boxes, nothing. Just bare rooms and that hollow sound your footsteps make when a place hasn't been lived in for a while. We're upstairs, standing in one of the bedrooms, and out of nowhere we hear this violent bang, like something heavy fell over or got dropped hard, the kind of sound that makes your stomach flip. All 3 of us freeze, like dead still. Eli and I look at each other, Then we look at the landlord, and his face is... I don't know how to explain it. He looked like someone had just whispered something horrible in his ear. He goes, really quietly, "You heard that too, right?" We search every room, closets, cabinets, the stairs, under the sinks, everything. And there's nothing. Nothing fallen, nothing broken, no animals, no reason. So we finished the tour anyway because what are you going to do? Pretend it didn't happen? And we're outside by Eli's SUV, just trying to laugh it off, when suddenly the car starts freaking out, lights flickering, the alarm going off in these weird, stuttering bursts. Not the normal pattern, like it couldn't decide whether to scream or whisper. The landlord's whole vibe shifts into, "I want to be anywhere but here." He shoves the paperwork into my hands, mumbles something like, "Call if you need anything," and basically speed walks to his car and leaves. And I'm not proud of this, but I sat in Eli's driver's seat and cried. Full on. Because I was convinced we had just signed a lease with something that did not want us there. I went home and spiraled, Googling lease loopholes, legal terms, anything. But you know how it goes. A couple weeks pass, you start explaining it away. Old house noises, electrical issues, coincidences. So we moved in. Move-in day. Door opens. And this tiny black cat rockets out between our legs like it's escaping prison. I had 2 friends helping us move, and all of us saw it. All of us heard the little paws skittering on the floor. It was real. We searched for it, thinking maybe it had been trapped inside and that's what caused that bang during the walkthrough. But we couldn't find it anywhere. No cat, no trace, nothing. And that's when the weird stuff started feeling consistent. Lights flipping on and off, smoke alarms going off randomly, the TV changing channels or blasting volume like it was possessed by a teenager with a remote. Doors that we knew we shut, just open. I told my friend Maris, who's one of those people that's calm about spiritual stuff in a way that makes me feel both comforted and deeply unsettled. And she's like, "Honestly, that doesn't sound hostile." She explained it in this really steady way, like neutral presences tend to do attention-grabbing things, and the nasty ones escalate into intimidation. Throwing things, moving furniture, marks, that kind of thing. She even said the walkthrough stuff sounded almost like excitement, like the house had been quiet for a long time and something was like, "Oh, people, finally!" At the time, I rolled my eyes. Now, I kind of get it. Then we got friendly with our neighbor next door, Tessa, who lived in the other house owned by the same landlord. And she's asking us these careful little questions about the place, like she's testing the water. Finally, I'm like, "Okay, you're clearly holding something back. What's going on?" That night, she's in bed, settling in, and she sees what looks like paw prints forming on her blanket. Like something invisible is stepping in circles, trying to find the perfect spot. Then the blanket dips, like a little animal sits down, and her dog starts barking at the bed like it's losing its mind. She turns on the light, and obviously there's nothing there, but she's shaken. And then she has this dream. She's sitting outside on the back porch, having tea with this older woman named Mabel, and Mabel's got a black cat curled up in her lap like it's the most normal thing in the world. Tessa wakes up freaked out, starts cleansing her house, telling Mabel, out loud, to leave. Then she goes into work the next day, determined not to say anything. And the landlord brings it up first. He goes, "This is going to sound crazy, but I had the weirdest dream last night. I was having tea with an old woman named Mabel, and she had a black cat on her lap. Like, come on." They tried digging into the property history. The place had been vacant for a while, bought cheap after a foreclosure. No clear record of who lived there right before. It was all a bunch of guesses, but the dream coincidence felt too specific, too shared. And that's when I started doing something that sounds ridiculous but genuinely helped. Because we never felt threatened. Scared, yes, but not like we were being hunted. It felt weirdly domestic sometimes, almost protective, like a presence that wanted to be noticed, not feared. And I'm telling you, my electric kettle would click on by itself more than once. Not every day, but enough times that I'd stand there like, are you kidding me right now? So I started talking out loud, mostly joking, mostly to keep myself from panicking. A light would flicker and I'd be like, "Hi, Mabel." Or something would happen and I'd go, "Okay, very funny, stop showing off." And the activity calmed down. Like it just wanted acknowledgement. Like once it got that, it didn't need to shout anymore. But then, there was one night. The night that still sits in my chest like a stone. Eli and I were asleep upstairs, bedroom at the top of the stairs. I wake up because I hear something, some faint sound that doesn't belong. And instantly I realize I can't move. Full sleep paralysis. I had it as a kid, so I recognize it right away. That horrible trapped in your own body feeling. You're awake, but your body isn't online yet. I'm trying to blink harder, trying to force my fingers to twitch, trying to make anything happen. And then out of the corner of my eye, I see a shape in the doorway. A dark figure. Not detailed, no face, no clothing. Just a person-shaped void, standing perfectly still in the frame of our door. My heart is hammering. I'm sweating. And the terror is so sharp it feels physical, like cold metal. And I remember thinking, I'm going to die and I can't even scream. It goes on for what feels like forever. Minutes. Endless minutes. And then, suddenly, the hallway light clicks on. And at the exact same time, this warmth floods my whole body, like a tingly heat washing over me from head to toe. And I swear to you, I heard, clear as if someone leaned down beside my ear, "You're safe." And instead of fighting, instead of snapping into panic like sleep paralysis normally does, I just drifted back to sleep, like someone turned the fear off, which has never happened to me. Ever. Sleep paralysis ends with you clawing your way back into movement, usually sobbing or gasping or shaking. You do not just peacefully fall asleep again in the middle of that. Later, I wake up for real. I can move this time. I'm crying, shaking Eli awake, telling him what I saw, telling him there was something in the doorway, because he says, I just had a dream. And Eli never remembers dreams. He tells me he dreamed we were asleep, and a dark figure came in through the back door, left it open, walked through the house like it knew exactly where to go, went up the stairs, and stopped at our bedroom doorway to watch us. And in the dream, he couldn't wake up, couldn't shout, couldn't move, like he was floating above it all, watching it happen but trapped. And the moment he says this, we both just stare at each other. And neither of us wants to move. But we do. We get up, we go downstairs, and the stairway light is on, and the back door is wide open. Not cracked, not unlatched, open. We were obsessive about locking up, like annoying about it. Check it twice, sometimes 3 times, and it was a heavy door. It didn't just drift open. We searched the whole house, every room, every closet, under the stairs, nothing. And the creepiest part? Nothing was taken. We had keys, wallets, everything right near the entrance, untouched. So to this day, we don't know what happened. I don't know if it was a real person and somehow nothing came of it, or something else. Something that felt wrong in a way the other activity never did. But the hallway light, the one that always flickered, the one that felt like Mabel's little signature, that light turning on right when the warmth washed over me. It felt like an intervention, like something stepped in and said, "Not tonight." After that, we got a doorbell camera, and the house went quiet for a long time, almost like it was exhausted. like whatever was there had spent everything it had. Eventually, the little signs came back, small, harmless things. But that night changed us, because whether it was human or not, we both felt it. We were in danger, and something protected us. Not long after, Tessa moved out, and later Eli and I moved into the house next door. And the difference was immediate, like walking out of a crowded, noisy room into a silent field. Peaceful, still, normal. But every once in a while, I'd light a candle anyway. Not out of fear, more like respect. Because it's been about 4 years now, and I still think about that hallway light, and that warmth, and those words. You're safe. And how impossible it felt to be pulled gently back into sleep while something watched from the doorway. And I don't know what you believe, but I'll tell you this. I've never forgotten the feeling that we weren't alone in that house. And on the scariest night of our lives, we weren't unprotected either. So, I don't tell this story to freak you out. I tell it because it was real to me, and it shaped the way I understand heavy energy, like the kind you can't see but you can absolutely feel. I grew up without a dad, lower middle class, in this cramped little townhouse that always felt like it was trying to hold too much. It was me, my older brother Malik, my grandma, everyone called her Nana Joe, and my mom, Cheryl, who was active duty in the Navy. My mom was deeply depressed, like not just sad. It was this low, looming cloud that sat in the house with us, and even as a teenager, I could feel it. She kept to herself, door closed most of the time, like the master bedroom was her whole world and we were just living around the edges of it. Then one day, she got hurt at work. Bad. She broke her ankle and part of her foot, ended up with screws and metal, and she was basically stuck in bed for weeks. And if her depression was already a weight, once she was bedridden, it was like the weight doubled. I didn't really ask her what was wrong. I was young and, honestly, our family didn't do the whole talk about feelings thing. It felt like you stayed in your lane, you didn't pry. So I just watched and tried not to make anything harder. But that's when the weird stuff started. After my mom couldn't get up anymore, Nana Joe and I began noticing things we couldn't explain. At night, we'd hear banging downstairs, like somebody was forcing their way in. Cabinets, footsteps, the kind of noise that makes your stomach drop. We'd grab whatever we could, rush down there, hearts going crazy, and there would be nothing. Nobody. No broken lock. No open window. Just silence, like the house was pretending it didn't do anything. And then there were these random cold spots. Not, oh, the AC is on, cold. Like walking into a patch of air that felt wrong. Like it had a purpose. But the worst part was my mom's room. To get to it, you had to walk down this long hallway. And after a while, I started to dread that hallway. I'm talking full body dread, like something in me was saying, don't go down there. And it wasn't just me. Nana Joe avoided it too. She'd stand at the doorway and call in, but she wouldn't step all the way inside unless she absolutely had to. My mom was dating this guy then. His name was Keith, and he hated that room. He'd go in there and within minutes he'd be rubbing his chest like he couldn't breathe right. He told us he'd get sleep paralysis whenever he stayed near her room, like he'd wake up unable to move, convinced someone was on top of him, hands around his throat. My uncles would come by too, and every single one of them, without comparing notes, without being dramatic, said the same thing, that the room felt oppressive, thick, like walking into a storm. And here's the part that still messes with me. It was mostly the men who reacted that way. Women would still feel uneasy, sure, but the men described it like something was targeting them. Then one day, this is the part I can picture like it's a photo, My mom calls me and Nana Joe into her room. Her voice wasn't playful or curious. It was serious, tight. The moment we stepped inside, the room was freezing. Not chilly, freezing. My mom is lying there, completely stuck, can't even put weight on her foot, and she's staring at her bed like she's trying to understand how the world works. Because the bed had moved. Not shifted a little. I mean, it had been dragged, or lifted, and dropped in a different spot. And the carpet had this clear dent where the bed used to be, like the floor itself was pointing to the original position. Nana Joe starts moving around the room, and she opens the closet. And this smell comes out, like sulfur, like rotten eggs. It hit the back of my throat and made my eyes water. Nana Joe's face changed instantly. That woman had seen everything in her life, and I watched her go pale. We tell my mom about the closet and the smell, and she doesn't look surprised. She just says, really calmly, like she's naming the weather, "That was probably Evelyn." Evelyn, like she knew her. I remember my skin going prickly all over, because how do you say a name like that in a situation like that? Like you've met the thing doing it? A few days later, my mom calls us in again. This time she tells us, "Come here, look at the TV." The TV was off, just a black screen, glossy enough to reflect the room. She says, "Look in it, not at it, in it." So Nana Joe and I stand there, staring at the reflection. And at first it's just us, the bed, the chair beside it. Then I realized the chair in the reflection didn't look empty. There was someone sitting there. A woman. Not sharp and clear like a normal reflection, but unmistakable. Like a shape that didn't belong, holding its place anyway. She looked like she was wearing this old-fashioned gown. Something vintage, something that didn't fit the time we were living in. Her arms were resting like the chair had armrests, all composed, like she'd been sitting there a long time and had no intention of moving. I couldn't make out her face. I tried. I remember leaning slightly, like maybe if I shifted my angle I could catch details. But it was like the face didn't want to be seen. And the way she was positioned, she wasn't staring off into space. She was facing us, like she was watching and waiting for us to notice her. I don't even remember anyone speaking. I just remember the air feeling thick and my heartbeat pounding so hard I swear it made my ears ring. Not long after that we moved, and about a year later I heard the townhouse caught fire. Now here's where it gets even stranger. Later on I looked into the house, not because I wanted to be scared again, more like I needed to know if we were imagining things or if something had been there before us. And from what we found, a woman had died there. Not natural, not peaceful. She'd been killed, pushed down the stairs during an argument, according to what people said. Her name? Evelyn. And I still don't know how my mom knew it. To this day, I never asked her. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but when you grow up in a house where everyone survives by not poking at certain topics, you carry that into moments where you probably should ask. So I just live with it. That there was a name in my mom's mouth before we ever did any digging. That the room got cold like the house was holding its breath. That the bed moved like something wanted us to understand it could. And that in the black mirror of an old TV, a woman sat beside my mother's bed, quiet as a shadow, dressed like another era, watching us watch her. So, my daughter Maisie and I just got back from a trip to rural Virginia, and I'm still trying to fully shake it. We'd booked this little Airbnb for 6 nights, but we left after the 4th day. And I know how that sounds, like, oh, it just wasn't what you expected. But no, this was a deep, stomach-level, something is not right kind of situation. The host, Linda, had that sweet, smiling, bless your heart kind of vibe. like the classic warm southern hospitality. But even on the first night, there was this off note under it. For one thing, the door code was this long string of numbers, not even a pattern, just random. She'd clearly memorized it, but my brain didn't stand a chance. We arrived tired, unloaded the car, and I realized I'd locked us out. So, I had to walk over to Linda's house on the property to ask for the code again. She invites us inside, very friendly, and then she starts asking questions: where we're from, how long we're staying, what we're doing in town. Normal stuff. Except, she looks right at Maisie and says, real casually, that the questions are for her, and that I should let the little one answer and stay quiet. I remember blinking, like, did I hear that right? And then, on the way back, she tells us we should keep the curtains closed, even though it's safe, because we're 2 girls. Which, okay, but it was this huge private property. No nearby houses, no neighbors peeking through windows, just woods and open land. So it didn't feel protective, it felt pointed. That first night, I wrote it off. We'd been traveling forever, we were exhausted, and I kept hearing this sound in the bedroom, like a big beetle or something with a hard shell smacking into the unit on the wall over and over. Annoying, but I was too tired to care. I went straight to sleep. The second night is when it shifted. We were in bed, the house quiet, and the attached bathroom upstairs started making this faint metallic tink-tink sound, like tapping or something gently rattling. Maisie slept right through it, thankfully, but I laid there wide awake with this creeping anxiety that didn't match the situation. I kept telling myself, you're just overtired, travel jitters, you're being dramatic. But then these little things kept happening. Every time we left the rental and came back, the fan I'd left on was turned off. Every single time. Not unplugged, just switched off. And in the bathroom, there was this small extendable mirror, the only mirror in the place, really. One of those that swivels and tilts. I noticed it kept being angled downward, like aimed at a kid's height. At first, I assumed it was Maisie, but then I tilted it back up one afternoon, walked downstairs to check on her while she colored, came back up not even 10 minutes later, and the mirror was tilted down again. That was when my stomach dropped, because she hadn't even been upstairs. By the third night, I already felt like we were being watched. I didn't say that out loud, because saying it makes you sound like you've lost it. But it was in my bones. Maisie went to take a shower, and she pauses at the bathroom doorway and says, so quietly, like it's obvious, I'm closing the doors so the fireflies can't watch me. And here's the thing, Maisie is glued to me. She's outgoing, fearless, always chatting, always wanting the door cracked so we can talk while she showers. She does not close the door. So when she said that, it hit me like a cold splash. Because she was feeling it too, and she was trying to make sense of it in the only way an 8-year-old can. That night, she fell asleep fast, but I couldn't. My heart kept racing. I kept having these waves of panic, which is not normal for me. I'm not the kind of person who gets panic attacks out of nowhere. The metallic tinkering in the bathroom sped up, like someone was fussing with something. Not just one tap here and there. It sounded purposeful. Then it sounded like items on the counter were being moved around. I heard what I swear sounded like something dropping, like a cup or glass clinking against something hard. And then, this is the part that made my skin go tight. I heard the closet door across from the bed open. My suitcases were shoved right in front of it, so when that door opened, I heard it bump them. Twice. Like it hit the luggage and stopped. I didn't move. I barely breathed. And it went on. For a long time. Long enough that I stopped trying to rationalize it. Long enough that the only thought I had was, get your child out. Now. The next morning, I walked into the bathroom, and right there, on the white towel laid in front of the shower, were small, muddy footprints, like a child's footprints, coming out of the shower. They weren't there the night before. I would have seen them. And Maisie hadn't been anywhere muddy. If she had, the mud would have tracked in from the front door where we took our shoes off. There would have been prints across the floor, not just neat little wet-looking marks from the shower. I just stood there staring at them, trying to explain it away, and I couldn't. So I packed. Fast. Quiet. Smiling from my daughter like everything was normal, while my hands shook. I got us out of there and didn't look back. A couple days later, Linda messaged me, cheerful as ever, offering an extra night free on her, like it was a sweet little gift. I declined. Immediately. And since we got home, I keep replaying everything in my head, trying to decide what to do with it. Do I message her? Do I leave a review? Do I just let it go? All I know is it took me days to stop feeling like something was still hovering at the edge of my life. Like, that house followed us home in my nervous system. And honestly, it scared me badly enough that I don't know if I'll ever stay in an Airbnb again.